Good morning, everybody. We're going to call to order the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners apportionment and regular meeting for Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. It's 9 a.m. We'll start with our opening ceremonies. On rotation, we have Commissioner Morris today.
Yes, so a lot of us were raised in church. Some of us were not, but I think we're all familiar with the Lord's Prayer. When we are used to saying the same words over and over, sometimes we forget their meaning. And so I'd like to recite the Lord's Prayer, but I'd also like to then break it down into terms that we can use every day. So feel free to say it with me if you want to, or not. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debt as we forget our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So this is how I translate it for myself. Our Father who is in heaven, your name is holy and honorable. May your kingdom of love, patience, self-control, peace, and kindness dwell within me. And your will that we should love our neighbor as ourselves be lived every day by me, here on earth as it will be for eternity in heaven. And give me what I need for today, just like you gave the children of Israel manna every day, that I may rely on your goodness and not worry about tomorrow. And forgive me my human failures as you help me to forgive those who have failed me. And let our temptations and trials build our character and make us stronger. But deliver us from everything that's not worthy of the grace that you have given to us. I give all honor to you, for yours is the kingdom and the power and all glory forever. Amen.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Shealy, could we have the roll call, please?
Andrews? Here. Lynn? Here. Jewett?
Here.
Morris? Here. Nelson?
Here.
Seifert?
Here.
Walter? Here. Henschel?
I'm here. Next, we have approval of the minutes from the Board of Commissioners regular meeting of October 2nd and the study session of October 9th. Is there any corrections?
Motion to approve. Support.
Motion by Jewett, support by Nelson. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to first public comment. Bonnie, would you please read the rules?
As soon as I find him.
Okay.
I went to look and... Hold on.
Go ahead. Read.
I didn't have so much stuff on my background. I'd probably see it, but...
That's all right.
You don't have it memorized?
You'd think I would after so many years, right?
Any person shall be permitted to address the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board may state his or her name and township or district. Providing a specific address is not recommended. Persons may address the board on matters of or issues which are relevant and germane to county government as determined by the chairperson. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same topic, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, allow an additional opportunity or time to speak if determined germane and necessary to the discussion. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Orders of Business. However, public comment may be received during the meeting when a specific agenda topic is scheduled for discussion by the board. Prior to the first public comment, the chairperson will indicate the topics on the agenda for which public comment will be accepted. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized, and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson. The board shall not comment or respond to any person who is addressing the board. Silence or non-response from the board should not be interpreted as disinterest or disagreement by the board. Please be respectful and refrain from personal or political attacks.
You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I did TCM this morning, so I was all warmed up.
Because I didn't do the last meeting, and it's not in my packet.
Got it. All right.
That's
So if
why-
anyone would like to address the board, now is your opportunity. Please approach the podium. Come on, did I read that for nothing? There we go. Thanks, Kathleen. Welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm Kathleen Howisen, Peninsula Township, and I'm running for County Commissioner District 7. I'm continuing to follow the County Commission, tracking the issues and doing my research. I've toured over 25 county offices within the past few months and met with outstanding department leaders and staff. Most recently, I toured several county departments and authorities to gain firsthand knowledge about the services provided to my future constituents. And those tours include the water intake facility with Vern Koblenz and Jacqueline Johnson, Northwestern Michigan College with former Vice President Marguerite Cato, the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy with Director of People and Cultures Marguerite Cato, Beta with Director Kelly Dunham, and the Regional TVC Airport with CEO Kevin Klein. We are fortunate to have Kevin Klein and his staff doing great things for our county and our region. The extensive airport tour I was given was fascinating and informative. We are in great hands with Kevin Klein and his staff. And speaking of the airport, at the most recent Airport Authority meeting on October 14th, a very important preliminary step was voted on that will allow TVC, Grand Traverse, and Leelanau counties to explore bonding through our county's AA+ bond rating, a savings of about $18 million versus bonding directly. I thank the TVC, Leelanau, and Grand Traverse County board members who have the vision to support the project and voted yes to move this process forward. The expansion project will be approximately $120 million invested in our community with no local tax dollars being pledged to the project. It is fiscally responsible and the right thing to do. So those of you who voted yes, I thank you. As you can see, I will do my homework. I will always be prepared for county and commission and township meetings. I will have important questions already answered, and I will do my research so meetings can run efficiently. So I'd like to thank the board members who do their homework, get their questions answered, and show up to meetings ready to do business, and not grandstand as mentioned in a recent news article. I'm Kathleen Howisen. I'm running for County Commission to get down to business and do what's best for our county. I look forward to serving the taxpayers and the staff of Grand Traverse County. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else this morning? Seeing none, we will move on to approval of the agenda. Mr. Seifert.
Before we approve the agenda, I'd like to make an addition if I could.
Okay.
I sent everybody an email this morning. I apologize for lateness. It's a request for the reimbursement of a previously already approved ARPA funding from Grant Township. I'd like to add that today.
Okay, we can add that to long agenda today.
Where it's
Unfinished
appropriate.
business 11B. Does that sound acceptable?
Don't we have an ARPA approval in here?
In the consent calendar.
I think new business.
B9.
Or unfinished.
Commissioner Seifert, is that the Exhibit C for Zoo Road?
Yes.
The only reason that was not on this agenda is because it was received late. Administratively, we don't have any concerns about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is the board okay? Is there any objection to adding that to B9 on the consent calendar? Okay.
I don't.
Okay, we'll add that to B9 on the consent calendar.
Thank you, everyone.
Commissioner?
Yeah,
TJ?
item 12A is the Youth Substance Use Prevention Month and Substance Misuse Prevention Month item.
Yes.
There are people in our audience today who I believe have come to support that, and it's the last item on our agenda. And I'm wondering if the board would support moving that up earlier in the agenda so that the people who are here to support it, I suspect it's not a long discussion, but maybe we could take it up a little earlier in the agenda, perhaps prior to the 2 public hearings that we have and the closed session that are scheduled ahead of it, just given that it's a resolution of support for
Where would you recommend putting it on the agenda?
I would put it maybe under 7, well, there is no 7A.
Make it 7A.
Make it 7A.
7A, yeah.
Is there a motion?
Are there,
Or
I think
amendment?
the motion is to, I don't know what,
we'll have a motion
We haven't had
to
a
approve as amended, once we hear everybody's requests, and if there's not support for that, we'll split the questions.
so I guess that's a motion. Is that what you're saying?
Motion with that?
Well, we're building a motion.
Okay.
I mean, just
All
for
right.
efficiency,
Okay, so
if there's no objection.
So no, it's not a motion.
Okay. One sec, Commissioner Flint. So you said there's people here to support it. Were they planning to speak at public comment about it? Because
I'm not sure, but
All
I
right.
think they would like to see it pass before
Okay.
they leave.
okay. Well, we could just put it in the consent calendar and it'll be done. But
I don't
thought you
know if
wanted-
anyone, is there anyone who wants to speak to that? Because if not, I'm happy to move it into the consent
Well,
calendar.
we had a public comment already, though.
Fair enough. Yep. I think we could move it to the consent calendar. I'm not sure why it wasn't there. There's some other items that are in the consent calendar that are
Yeah.
resolutions.
I agree.
So I didn't know if that
So-
was intentional, if we needed to have a discussion about it, but
I think consent
It's
calendar.
just a resolution. How about B10 in consent?
that would be great.
Okay. We don't need to shift it. It can be B.
We have 2 Bs.
Oh, you got 2 Bs. Oh, I see what you're saying. 7, the first 7B should be 7A. That's a typographical error. So there we do have a 7A and a 7B. So Bonnie, just to make sure you're caught up,
The one, well, let's see, most recent
so,
sent out.
yeah, there was a recent addition of some minutes. So if you have the original one that was sent out, you would be missing the study session minutes of October 9th.
And I think the items under 7 were rearranged between one version and the next, which would probably explain why B is on there twice.
I see. So 7B, the first one is 7A, and the next one is 7B.
Yes.
Project
And then-
Alpha is A.
And then we have added the Zoo Road item to item B9 for the ARPA funding. Did you send that, Commissioner Seifert, did you send that to the clerk?
I didn't send it to Bonnie, but I
Go ahead
can.
and forward that to her as well so she can update the online portion. And then item B10 is the item that was formerly at 12A for the Youth Substance Prevention Month resolution.
I'll make the motion with those
I'm
corrections.
sorry, Commissioner Flynn, did you have something to add?
Well, I was going to pull B3 because I did have folks that'd like to step up, so I don't know if we want to move that up so they can, but if, I'm okay either way if it's just removed from the consent agenda.
Oh, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're still approving the agenda, but we'll recognize you in a moment. Commissioner Nelson, go ahead.
I'll approve the agenda with the previous mentioned changes.
Second.
All right, motion by Nelson, support by Seifert. Any further discussion? Is everybody clear? Is there any question? Okay. I did try to go over it again. All right.
Are you clear, Bonnie?
I think I'm clear.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have our agenda. Thank you for working through that with us. Item 6 is the consent calendar. Bonnie, we're ready for that.
Better go online, because I'm going to get out and I don't want the wrong one. All right. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive. Number 1, Department of Health and Human Services Pavilion's August 2024 meeting minutes. Number 2, Grand Traverse Conservation District September 2024 report. Number 3, ARPA status report. Number 4, expenditure report. B, approvals. Number 1, Sheriff's Office evidence property room surplus. Number 2, access control expansion at Health Services Building. Number 3, October 2024 Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation. Number 4, 2025 MDHHS Emerging Threats Grant renewal to Grand Traverse County Health Department. Number 5, 2025 MDHHS Local Public Health Services Grant Agreement. Number 6, Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation Phase 1 Sign Replacement Project. Number 7, request to pursue subordination of a section of the Wetland Reserve Program easement at Maple Bay Parks and Natural Area. Number 8, resolution requesting state support for intersection safety improvements. Number 9, ARPA funding reimbursement requests.
Okay. And then B10 is now the
B10 is
formerly A12, Youth Substance Use Prevention Month and Substance Misuse Prevention Month resolutions. Okay, commissioners, would anyone like to remove anything from the consent calendar at this time? Commissioner Flynn.
B3.
B3.
And I also have folks in the audience that would like to say a few words about the work of the Women's Resource Center.
Okay.
So just, I don't know if we want to keep that just at
Procedurally, we're supposed to do that at public comment. I mean, unless
well,
there's
we've done
a
it before,
presenter
so I just
that's.
wanted to make sure.
All right, we'll try to be flexible. Any others, Commissioner Andrews?
B7.
Commissioner Jewett?
B8.
Are there any others? Okay, I have the removal of B3 by Commissioner Flynn, B7 by Commissioner Andrews, and B8 by Commissioner Jewett. Do we have
a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of B3, B7, and B8?
Support.
Motion by Jewett, support by Andrews. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Flynn,
Yes.
Jewett,
Yes.
Morris. Yes. Nelson,
Yes.
Seifert,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Henschel.
Yes, motion carries. Brings us to special orders of business 7A, Project Alpha engagement of an architectural and engineering firm. Mr. Alger.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. I would like to introduce to you our owner's rep from Cunningham Limp. Jerry and Bobby are here to speak to you about the process we have employed for the identification of a potential architect. Morning, Jerry. Morning, Bobby.
Good morning.
Morning,
Welcome.
Commissioners. As reported about 2 weeks ago at the last meeting, can you hear me, everyone? Okay. We received 4 quotes for the RFP architectural services. We interviewed all 4 last week. We did an evaluation based on the qualifications, what benefits that the team could play in helping this proposal, this project. And we reported to the Alpha Committee last week on our recommendation. That's to hire PIA, which is Partners in Architecture. And I believe you have in your package all 4 of the RFPs that we received from both Tower Pinkster, Environment Architects, Hobbs and Black, and PIA. So the anticipated fee for PIA is 7.22% based on total estimated construction costs of $13 million. That's anywhere between a $940,000 to about a $960,000, I think is what we did the math with. And that included like 22,000 potential reimbursements. So I would answer any questions. Bobby Pawlinski is also here. He's our Chief Financial Officer who helped me with the interviews.
Okay, Commissioner Jewett.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we engage Partners in Architect to provide architectural services consistent with a response to the request for proposals in related to certain facilities as described in item 2.0, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and 2.5 of the master plan.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
And, yeah.
Oh,
Did you want to include that?
yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I would need to add to that, and to authorize the county administrator and civil council to negotiate the related professional service agreement, which shall be executed by the chairperson of the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Commissioner Nelson, that's
Yes.
your motion as well? Okay. I have a motion by Jewett and support by Nelson to approve as presented. Questions, discussion? Commissioner Nelson?
I have two. One, administration and legal counsel. Any questions, issues, concerns?
No, we are completely behind what Cunningham Limp did. We understand their criteria-based evaluation, and we've had discussions surrounding each of the proposals. Partners in Architecture stood out to us as a team because of their experience with public safety buildings specifically, and the relationship that they've had with Cunningham Limp before as well. So one bit of an icing on the cake, so to speak, is they are able to submit for grants for resilient infrastructure, and they're willing to do so. So with that, we completely stand behind Cunningham Limp's proposal.
Are there questions? Commissioner Andrews?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, a lot of work went into these proposals and a lot of seemingly very good applications or responses. My only question relates to environmental architects. It looked like their rate was significantly lower, coming in at 5.5%. And they just built the Benzie dispatch facility, and so I'm curious as to and they're local. Obviously, we've seen them in a lot of local projects. I'm just curious as to the rationale for the higher rate as opposed to a local lower rate.
Yes, Commissioner Andrews. So we did have quite an extensive conversation regarding the fee. What we concluded is it really came down to the experience. And although Ray Kendra from Environment Architects does have some experience, they've just done the Benzie 911. It was a smaller facility. We just felt that for the need that we need for this project, that it wasn't a good fit.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Anything to add before we vote?
We're going to do the interviews for the civil RFP. We received those responses yesterday. So I received for site engineering for Mansfield, Mega, which is Mike Rademacher with Monument Engineers, Spicer Group, and Gosling. So we'll be going through those four this week.
Okay, thank you.
What was that last one, Jerry?
Gosling. Zuback?
Gosling, okay.
Commissioner Andrews, did you have something?
Could you give us an update? One of the unknowns, I think, from this board's perspective is the facility storage size, and obviously you're working with a $13 million number. I think that was based on the original proposal from the facilities master plan. Where are you, or where is the team, maybe administration is more leading this, in terms of right-sizing the facilities storage?
I'll just give you a quick synopsis. So they're preparing right now, each one of the department heads, an inventory of their existing needs, sizes, approximate areas that they would want to have. And we're compiling all this information, and then we're going to provide that to the architect and have them help us in sizing correctly. Then we'll go to the committee to evaluate and then determine what would be the applicable size.
Do you have any sense on where you're at, sort of up or down from what was in the original? Is the facilities master plan a maximum? Should we think of it that way?
I think you're probably looking at maximum the 53,000 square foot. Do you need that? We don't know yet. So we're waiting to evaluate, and then we'll report to you.
One of the primary questions we have is whether or not the sheriff's is going to be involved in any of storing of their items up at this facility as well. We had a good discussion with the sheriff's office last week. He and his staff are considering options from keeping what they currently have, that is a very secure facility for all the items that they have. I believe this board has toured that facility, versus having a joint storage area up on Lafreniere. There are advantages and disadvantages to both, and he is currently weighing those. He is familiar with the timeline that we have in place for the decision-making tree that Cunningham Limp and the county is in. And we're hoping to have a good meeting with him yet this week or next to kind of hear his thoughts.
And as I recall, one of the limiting factors is if we give up the boat storage up on the hill, it might have to go back to the tribe.
No. So, no.
The funding for it was limited.
The funding, yes, the funding for that facility was as a result of a forfeiture seizure through RCI at the resort many, many years ago, and it was $1.5 million-ish, and the funding would always have to be used for a law enforcement purpose. So conceptually, you could sell that facility, take the proceeds, use those dollars to help offset the cost of this facility.
Okay. We have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion
Thank you,
carries.
Thank
Thank you,
Bobby.
Commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Chair.
We'll move over to item 7B, public hearing for LIV AE, East Bay Brownfield Plan. We'll open that public hearing at 9:26 and hear the presentation and then take public comment.
I thought Mr. Forsythe was going to run this, so I'm going to introduce to you as we spin up here. Ann Jameson, our Brownfield consultant, is with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'd like to introduce the development team from the Live AE East Bay LLC development. We have representatives from East Bay Township present today. We have the Township Supervisor, Beth Friend. We also have the Planning Director, Claire Carner, present. The development team, who is representing Live Communities, and Alan Edwin Holmes, are also present, and that would be Brian Farkas, who will be doing the presentation, and I believe their consultant is also present. Correct me if I'm incorrect, Joe Agustinelli. So I'd like to introduce Brian. He has a PowerPoint presentation prepared that he had put together for the township and the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and so I'll let him start with that.
Thanks, Ann.
Welcome.
As Ann mentioned, Brian Farkas with Alan Edwin Homes. I'm the director, of workforce housing. I've been with the company about 2 years. Prior to that, I spent 10 years in municipal government in Detroit. So before I start, I just want to thank you guys for your service. I know sometimes government service can be thankless, but appreciate your support. So we are looking at developing a site with local partners, and we're going to hold back in the AMI limits. There's a new law that passed with the new TIF law, and so we're going to be able to hold back a portion, 20% of the homes will be restricted to people making under 100% of the local area income. And first of all, we're incredibly thrilled to be here in Traverse City. We've got great partners with East Bay Township. We've got great local partners. And if this is approved, we plan for groundbreaking very, very, very soon on the site. The site, if you're familiar with it, has had 2 previous development attempts that have failed. There's some trickiness to this site. We believe with the new TIF law and the reimbursements we can get for the money we invest, we can have the third one be a charm, and we can bring 170 single-family homes to a market that's very constrained with a housing crisis. So the vision is to turn the currently blighted structure, blighted site, into 170 single-family homes. We've got amenities we're going to add in there, sports court, and the homes are going to look like this as you see in front of you. We're going to have 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, and 5-bedroom homes ranging from 1,800 to just over 2,000 square feet. The Integrity 1,800, the Integrity 1910, the Integrity 2085, and the amenities. So this is going to be a premium area with, again, the workforce housing component. You're going to have dog parks, pickleball courts, playground, boat, RV parking, and expanded trail system that we're going to work with the East Bay Township to put around the area. And this will be TIF funded. And so we're going to install the pathway on our property that abuts the site. And then we're going to work with East Bay Township to include their reimbursement for the pathway around the land that's not ours. So you're going to have a contiguous pathway system around the entire site. And the project financials. So with the TIF money we're seeking, we want to cover 50% of the infrastructure, and then we're also going to have 20% of the homes be restricted for workforce housing. So you can make up to 120% of the area median income, but the rents will be capped at 100% of the AMI for deeper affordability. And what does that look like in terms of raw numbers? So our 3-bedroom without the subsidy will come in at about $3,000 a month. And the 3-bedroom workforce housing will come in at about $2,300 a month. The 4-bedroom without workforce housing will come in about $3,250 a month, and the 4-bedroom workforce housing will come in at I believe that's $25,000 a month, $2,500 a month. And it's interesting to note that the metrics that we use and the pro formas we put together come from the MEDC, and they don't currently have a 5-bedroom option. So you'll see in the graph here, we had the chart, we actually had to impose the 5-bedroom on there because there's not 5 bedrooms really offered at the workforce housing level, and we're going to bring that to the market. So our 5-bedroom without the workforce housing is going to come in at about $3,500 a month, and we're going to discount that with the workforce housing TIF reimbursement to $2,800 a month. And so if you look at the comparable rents in the area and the kind of market we're entering right here, you've got attached 3-bedroom products nearby coming in at just under $3,000 a month. The new phase of a development nearby for 3-bed, 3.5 bath, 1-car townhome is starting at $3,100 a month. So we know that there's a crisis in the area, both in terms of supply and affordability. And so we're really excited, again, partner with the local municipality to bring this market to fruition. Again, the comparable rents nearby. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jared from our consulting firm.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jared Lutz. I am with Michigan Growth Advisors. We're an economic development consulting agency. We helped Alan Edwin prepare this Brownfield plan. Really quickly, looks like quite a complicated spreadsheet here, but this is just an excerpt of our pro forma that we helped the development team build to analyze the financials on the project. As you all know, construction costs have gone through the roof in the past couple of years, particularly when we're building single-family homes, the 3, the 4, and the 5-bed homes, as opposed to multifamily units. That is typically what's seen in the market today for rental units. What we're looking at here is our cash flow statement, and what I want to draw your attention to, this is just a snapshot of our income versus our expenses. And what's highlighted there in red is our debt service coverage ratio. Lenders and banks, financial institutions tend to require a minimum debt service coverage ratio of 1.2 to make sure that the project is financially secure. Right now, we're showing no TIF revenue on this model, and as we can see, the debt service coverage ratio is underwater for about 11 years. That's year 11, and then we come up above the 1.2 threshold in year 12. Now, when we include the TIF revenue, that top line there that's highlighted in blue, and that number that is circled is the total TIF balance over a 16-year reimbursement period. The debt service coverage ratio is only underwater in year 1 and 2. The project financials just start to make sense for both a developer to take on and a lending institution to do this project with the inclusion of TIF, but not without. And there's your TIF revenue in year 11 through 20. Again, with that TIF revenue, the TIF burns off to the developer in year 16. There will be an additional 5 years of TIF capture for a total of 21 years of TIF capture, but those remaining 5 years flow to the local Brownfield revolving fund, which is housed within the Grand Traverse County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. And again, this is another snapshot from that pro forma. This is our internal rate of return, our IRR with and without TIF. As you can see on the left there, the project just simply does not work. The IRR is negative without the inclusion of that TIF. With the TIF, the rate of return is still small, but it makes the project feasible for a developer to come in and build these units. So as we were talking about, this is our TIF revenue that flows in over 20 years here. Again, those first 11 years, those first 16 years come to the developer. That bottom line is what we're showing that flows to the developer. The top line there is the school tax capture. That is your state education tax and your school operating millage. And then the second line there is all of your local millages, excluding debt and special assessments. And what we have highlighted there in the last couple of years is the remaining TIF capture that again flows to that local Brownfield revolving fund.
I'm now going to read each word of the slide as we go through the team, but I'm just kidding. But it's in your packet, and we're just really excited to be here. And with that, in summary, we're looking to deliver 170 single-family, high-end quality homes. Some brief background I think I glossed over. Allen Edwin Homes is the largest home builder in the state of Michigan. We build about 800 homes a year. We're really excited to be here, and I think we're really excited to take advantage of this new state law that allows us to deliver products at this price point, at this scale. And so you're going to have 35 affordable units, again, for families making between 80 and 120% of the area median income, and they will be priced below 100% of the area median income. The TIF runs for 14 years with 5 additional years for the local Brownfield Authority. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. That concludes the presentation portion. I believe we need a public comment segment, right? We've already opened it and heard the presentation, so would anyone like to comment on this topic? Now's your opportunity. The board rules apply, other than this is a one-topic public comment. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Claire Carner. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director with East Bay Township. And just wanted to mention that the Planning Commission approved this site plan in June of 2024. The Township Board approved the Brownfield plan in September. East Bay Township has been really proactively working on amending our zoning ordinance to allow for a diversity of different housing options. And this would actually be the first below market rate housing that's come to East Bay Township, which is exciting. And this is a unique model with the single family detached homes that are for rent. And so it just really helps to support the diverse portfolio of homes that are currently under construction in East Bay Township. We have a range of different housing options. Did want to just mention the trail. We are excited about that, which is included in the Brownfield plan, and with the safe routes to school infrastructure that the township is currently underway and is teed up for construction in 2026. Part of this Brownfield plan will continue that trail all the way up to the 4 Mile and Hammond intersection, and then all the way up Hammond. So it's really gonna connect actually 5 different communities, neighborhoods with 5 different schools with Olson. So it's exciting to be able to include that infrastructure in this Brownfield as well. So happy to, as you go through discussion, happy to answer any questions related to planning and zoning. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Madam Supervisor.
Hi, Beth Friend, East Bay Township Supervisor. First, I want to thank you for having this before your board and for the consideration and for the Brownfield Authority's approval. I did want to mention a couple of things. One, I just want to stress that special assessments, as the gentleman mentioned, are not included. And for East Bay Township, that is our fire, our ambulance, and our police. So with the addition of 170 homes, obviously come needs. And although we don't expect there to be a lot of activity, of course, you're going to have, kids that fall off their bicycle and, break their arm, that sort of thing. So we'll have those resources for our local emergency services. And the other thing I want to stress is how much Anne and the developer and the township worked together over a series of 9 months in putting this together. And really appreciate Anne's guidance and work with this, and also the developer in coming to the table. When we first started to look at this project, it was 10% of housing and 100% of infrastructure costs. And as we worked through it, and it was up to 120% AMI. And I can be, some of you may know, insistent and persistent. And so after a long period of time and the developer, willing to partner, brought that down to a more affordable of 100% AMI. And we recognize that there are specific infrastructure needs with this project that are different than an apartment building, right? So it's much more expensive to do a complete neighborhood, which is what we're seeing a lot of people still want. So we appreciate that workability of the developer and in getting to the 20% and the 50%, and as well keeping that at the 100% as a max for the AMI. So thank you very much for your consideration. I hope the developer has your support in the project. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Anybody else for public comment on this topic? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 9:41. Bring it back to the board for board discussion and action. Commissioner Walter.
Yeah, thank you. Interested to know, and I'm not sure who can answer this question, maybe the developer, about the kind of the rental structure of it. Like, is there an on-site manager? Are you the management company? What sort of support do renters have? How long are the leases? Can you just speak to some of that? Utilities? All of that.
So Allen Edwin Homes has a subsidiary, Copper Bay Rental. This would be managed with our joint venture partner, Liv. Liv has sites in Holland, Arizona, Traverse City, and they'll be the on-site manager for this process. So the terms of the lease will be about a year long, and it'll be it's not going to be outsourced to a third party property management. It'll be in-house with the company.
So Liv will have an office on site. I didn't really see. I didn't look closely, but
Calling Tom up here for some assistance. I work with him as well.
Okay.
Tom Larabelle, also with Allen Edwin Homes, partnering with Liv. Liv has a place in Traverse City. Their apartment complex has on-site folks there, and so they'll be stationed at their current location and remotely working at this location as well. So they're about 8 to 10 minutes apart. We'll also have a maintenance facility or building on-site as well. So they'll kind of be sharing time, but their offices will be at their current complex.
And you mentioned about 12 months. Is that the minimum, a 12-month lease?
They can go longer. But yeah, we typically have these aren't short-term rentals. That's what I'm talking about. These are long-term rentals. But 12 to 24 months is typically the lease time frame.
And can you speak to like the energy efficiency of their proposed buildings and what the utilities might look like for a renter?
Correct. Yeah. Or a good question. The energy efficiency meets current building code. And then under that, every building is rated with a HERS score, and I believe it's 60-ish. But every building has to go through, and we give them an energy efficient HERS score. ResNet is a brand of energy efficiency that we provide.
All right, Commissioner Seifert.
Yeah, you mentioned short-term rentals. Are short-term rentals going to be allowed to be subletted out?
No, there's no subletting. Yeah, East Bay does not allow them either.
Commissioner Nelson?
I'd like to make a motion. We can still have conversation, but I'd like to make a motion approval of a Brownfield plan for Grand Traverse County pursuant to and in accordance with the provisions of Act 381 of the Public Acts of the State of Michigan of 1996 as amended.
Second.
All right, motion by Nelson and support by Jewett and everyone else. For the discussion, Commissioner Andrews.
Thank you. Just a few questions. To follow up on Commissioner Walters' question regarding rental structure, is there anything that would prevent, whether it's for the 35 rent restricted units or the other 135 units, 5 bedrooms, that could be a way to split rent with 5 people? Is there anything that would prevent a group of, say, 5 people who, for whatever reason, want to roommate together, or is there any limit on the ability of people to do that? I know sometimes landlords don't appreciate that.
Yeah, you can have co-signers, somebody that wants to sign with their parent to have income qualify for income on the market rate stuff. If somebody is signing with their parents and they're above the income limit, they're not going to qualify for, I think, the particular workforce units we're talking about.
But there's no limit that 5 different people could come together and co-rent, unrelated, or does it have to be by household?
Yeah, we typically have, maybe this is a question for more of the workforce related, particulars.
So from the workforce housing perspective, those 35 units that are going to be income restricted, we're restricting those to a household income. And so, whether you have one income earner in the household or 2 or 3, you have to stay below that threshold. Ultimately, it's going to be a question for the developer on the balance of the sites, but the total household income cannot exceed 120% of area median income for those 35 income restricted units. And those units will be income restricted for a duration of 14 years. There's, I believe, 6 3-bed, 22 4-bedroom, and 6 5-bedroom units. We tried to apportion those with the distribution of the 170 units.
So it doesn't sound like we could have 5 workers come together and share the rent.
Yeah, certainly not on the income restricted units. They'd be overqualified. On our units, we really don't have that question. We do have, a boyfriend, girlfriend might have 2 incomes that want to rent a market rate house or a workforce. That would be restricted to that total cap.
So following up on you said there's 14 years that it's income restricted, but the tax capture is going to continue over 21 years. So there's a 7-year. Is my math right?
I believe the agreement is for us to hold the affordability to 15 years. And then we recapture, we're projecting the recapture rate for our expenses to be paid back in 14 years. And then there's another 16 years, and there's additional 5 years for the local Brownfield Authority. These are projections. Right now, we're currently projecting, I believe, 1% inflation. And so we're kind of lowballing it. So there's a very real possibility I'm seeing Ann's head nodding, so I'm happy. I'm seeing there's a real possibility these projections could come in sooner, and the developer could be paid back faster. And so these properties would hit the full tax rolls faster.
But you can't change the 14 years of affordability?
No.
No.
If we hit all of our expectations and we get paid back in year 9, we're still committing to the number of years of affordability. That's carved in stone. And it will be yearly certifications with the Brownfield Authority where we're showing our receipts, and if we don't, the money can be withheld.
Another related question. You said that the units are priced below 100% but eligible for up to 120% AMI, right? Yes. So doesn't that mean that realistically people who are earning 115 to 120% are eligible, even though it's priced at 100, or is the I see you shaking your head. Does that mean eligibility is capped at 100% as well? I just want to make sure that those are.
And I see you want to say something.
So the rent price points are capped at 100% AMI, which there's MSHDA publishes rent and income qualifications yearly, so those change on a yearly basis. So the rent is capped at 100%, but you're correct in that the annual income for that household can go up to 120% AMI. So does that clarify your question?
Yeah, but it doesn't really make me happier.
So I think really a good example would be to give you an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about 120% area median income in Grand Traverse County.
Right.
We're talking, 55,000 to 58,000 a year. So that is, even though that's at 120%, that's still within the workforce range of like a teacher, somebody who's, police officer, if it's dual income, maybe service workers, etc. So when we say 120%, we have to put that in perspective on what is that area median income price point in Grand Traverse County. And so while sort of the rationale behind this and sort of the intent of this program is for people who are making 120% AMI, but being able to rent at a price point of 100% or lower, that creates a basis for them to start being able to save some dollars, right, during the period that they're renting. It's not just going your entire paycheck going to, rent a house. So that it creates this momentum to be able to create basis for savings and then future investment in maybe for sale housing.
Thank you. I'm looking at the chart, and granted it's from 2023, but it looks like for a four-person, 120% is $107,000. I assume it's the number of bedrooms. I mean, we're assuming that it's 3, 4, 5-bedroom homes. We're looking at people who are
the income. The income is based on number of people in the household.
Right. So we're probably, and just to be clear, if there is a need for people between 100 and 120, wouldn't you agree that there's even more need for housing for people at that 80 to 100%? Right? Like if this means that we are increasing the housing stock intentionally for the people in the 100 to 120% by pricing it at up to 100, but allowing eligibility at 120.
Yeah, if I could real quick tell a brief story of a real life example. We did this in White Cloud under a pilot program that was elevated to 120%. So it's a different program, but the same income bands. And this was covered in the New York Times about a month ago. These are our first homes that went vertical. We built 8 of them in White Cloud. They haven't had homes there in about 30 years. The first family we moved in was a mom and dad and 3 kids under the age of 8. So they're a family size of 5. And it was right when MISTA was switching over their income restrictions to go a little higher. The previous income limit was, I think, $98,000 for 120% of the area median income in Newaygo County. This family made $103,000. This is all published in the New York Times. And when the mom first called, we said she didn't qualify. Our rental agent looked at the chart, and she was disappointed. She was on several waiting lists in town. And when the new MISTA numbers came out and increased it to $104,000 a year, our rental agent was on her game and called the mom back and said she qualified. They'd been living in her in-laws' basement for 3 years with 3 young kids with bunk beds that went up 3 high. I was there when they walked into the house for the first time, and the mom burst into tears. So when we're talking about the cutting off of the income, and I know 120% sounds high, and over $100,000 is generally seen as doing very well, this is exactly what the program is tailored for families like that we moved into White Cloud. And so I think to Ann's point, if you have a population that goes up to 120%, but we're not charging 120% of the rent, we're charging only up to 100, you provide that cushion that allows that family of 5 to not put their whole paycheck towards rent, and to save and to potentially be one of our customers buying a house in a couple of years. So that, sorry for the long explanation, but the story really hit me. We talk about numbers, we talk about income bands and things like that. Walking through that house with that family that lives in Newaygo County and makes $103,000 a year, barely qualifying, meant a lot. Sorry about that. I think I went too long.
Commissioner Nelson.
I think it's really difficult to build housing that's at 80% AMI, new housing or below.
Right.
It's just not feasible. It's not going to happen. But I think what you'll find is when you have these housing, these are still, even though these are much reduced rents, they're still unattainable for some people, but the people that can afford these are going to move up into these newer units, and that makes housing available for people at that 80% AMI. So as other stuff, there are people who can afford more who are living in, because there's a shortage of space. So when you open up these 170 units, there is potentially 170 other units that become available. Maybe some are moving in, but as this happens, the market shifts. It's just like in commercial office, the nicer offices, people move up. And these people, probably a lot of these people aren't going to live here for 14 years. You're going to get in, and you talk about saving money. You're going to be able to move out of this place into maybe a place that you own or some other place. So this is not it's not a pie that doesn't grow. We're expanding the availability of housing here, and as you know, basic economics, the more housing we have, the more affordable it becomes. So it's very important that we help with something like this to make those spaces available for people at the lower income rate, and this helps it, because right now people who can afford more are living in those lower rates.
Commissioner Flynn and then Seifert.
I'm just wondering, that's good. I appreciate that story. I'm a single mother, but I'm not in that 103 level. And so I'm wondering, would there be prioritization of people below 100% who can live there? And if so, would that be a process, or is that something we can agree on? Or what happens to the mom with the 3 kids living in the basements who are making the 92 that still can't get the apartment?
So these will be open for those leases as well. And so you're going to have the 80 to 120 represented in this group. And one thing, not to answer your question directly, but one thing I wanted to add, the way these houses are going to be spread out in the development, there's not going to be one area that is 100% all of the income restricted units. These are going to be sprinkled out throughout the whole development, and they'll probably revolve. As a family earns too much or moves out, you're going to see the percentage stay the same, but the units might flip. But they will be eligible for the 80 to 120 price band.
Commissioner Seifert, did you have something?
Yeah, actually, thank you for bringing this project to it. Usually when we talk about pilot programs and TIF funding and things like that, we're always talking about apartment buildings, which are great for local community governments because of the high taxes, but they're not good for the social wealth, if you will, of the population. Now, granted, this is not home ownership, but this is as close as you can get. And quite frankly, when they change the law, this is the kind of thing that they envisioned, where we're going to get people into their homes, not into a complex, or let me rephrase that, into a cubicle in a building. I said, and to Commissioner Jewett's point, some people might live there forever, and maybe they'll buy them in 20 years, or maybe that's not even an option. But it's like, this is a lot of work to do this. The easy thing to do is just put up an apartment building. And they're to be commended for bringing us. And I would like to see more projects just like that brought to us. I've had my fill of apartment buildings. Granted, I speak for only one part of the county. But if you haven't, I follow real estate because it's a fun thing to do, to go, oh my God, I could have bought that for $60,000 because I'm, 110 years old. But if you look at real estate prices around here, 120 AMI is not buying a house in East Bay Township. That's not happening. Or anywhere north of there or west of there. So, I mean, the rent seems high to those of us that have been here forever. But the reality of it is, they're still pretty bloody affordable.
All right, Commissioner Walter, and then we're going to see if we can vote.
Is there anything with these are 2 different TIFs, and then through MSHA that precludes you from deciding to make some condos or sell some of them? I mean, is there anything involved in it that would preclude you from doing that?
So as far as the rental units go, those would have to be, in order for us to get our full reimbursement, those would have to be maintained as rental at the affordable rates. For the remaining units, I believe we could defer to Tom on that.
They cannot be, right now it's a single deed owned by one entity project. So, if we'd have to subdivide in order to sell, and that'd have to be a process going through the township. But again, the workforce units that we're committed to in the TIF will not change over that, I believe, 14-year period.
Okay, so the 35 units will remain rentals for the 14 or 15 years, but other homes in there, you could decide at some point to turn them into condos.
It's not our intent, but we could, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Andrews?
Yeah, I just want to raise the concern. First of all, I appreciate the presentation. The cash flow information was helpful. I would have, if you could provide those ahead of time, that would be much appreciated since it wasn't in the application. But what was in the packet is the Housing North rental housing gap estimates, which is on page 39 of the packet. And I just want to observe that in 2024, the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners has approved, assuming we approve this, 593 units in the category of 81 to 120%, which is a category that had a shortfall over a 5-year period of 288 units, which means we've tax subsidized twice the number of units in this year alone in that category, which says to me that we are doing a really good job of incentivizing tax capture and units in the 80 to 120%, to the point we've now, arguably, if the data is correct, if the report is correct, and it's the only report we have, and it's the report that helps justify the project, but we haven't moved the needle at 50 to 80, nor under 50, where the need is tenfold, 3,000 units. And I'm concerned that we don't have a policy that's moving us forward and moving the needle where the need is the greatest by a lot. And we've heard that we can do set-asides. We've heard that there are things we can do besides, this will come to, by my math, $427,000 per unit in tax subsidies for these projects. That's $14 million over 35 units. We need a strategy that moves the needle at the lowest income levels, not doubling the number of units in the area where we already have it. I'm going to support this project. It's come a long way, and I think it's got a lot of support in the community, and it's unique that it's single family and it's big homes. But I really think the county needs, we are the only government that sees all these projects. We saw Blair, Garfield, Traverse City, East Bay, all of these projects, Wallach, Hall Street, Garland, Live, this one, and McRae Hill. The only common jurisdiction is this board. And we're the only entities, we are the entity who should be leading to get more affordable housing at the lowest income levels.
Commissioner Nelson.
I would reiterate that this project does help in that market. By opening up, providing more houses, you're helping more housing units. You're helping the people in that 80% AMI. It's very difficult to build new. It's a business opportunity for you. If you want to try to build something that's 50 to 80 AMI, it doesn't work financially to build something new. So this opens up. These projects are a good thing for the whole market, especially the market at 80% and below. So we are in fact helping that market by doing this. So I want to stress that. I think that's important for people to hear. And if I remember back to the form, I think there's, over the life of this, there's about $17 million in taxes going to the local units for the schools and EMS and stuff. Is that, you're not incorrect? So that's $17 million that is not being captured by the local governments currently. So it's $17 million more to our community. So I don't want anyone to think that like we're giving away the farm here and nobody's going to make any, the developers making all this money and the local units of government are not, and the citizens are not benefiting from this. The citizens of Grand Traverse County, East Bay Township, are benefiting by a $17 million infusion, plus the infusion of this project, which I forget what the total cost of the project is. That's jobs, that's people, that's workforce housing, it's helping, it's doing a lot of good. So that's why I support it.
It's also worth mentioning there's not a homestead or a primary residence exemption on these taxes. They are paying the full tax rates. So if you own your home, you're paying a lower tax, somewhere in the neighborhood of half of the tax rates.
These are rentals.
These are rentals, and the taxes will be paid on these units based on their value without that primary residence exemption. So even though we have a program here that helps the developer cover the costs, they're also paying in, if these were people own these homes, they'd probably be pretty close to flush as compared to someone that owned the home. anyway, I do want to thank the developers for taking a piece of land that has been designed and started to be developed twice already. It's in my neighborhood, it's in my district, and I really appreciate you picking the ball up and making this what is going to be a beautiful community. I have a lot of faith in what you've done and what the township has done, and thank you, East Bay Township, for being so workable with these developers to get this off the ground. So with that, Bonnie, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Jewett,
Yes.
Morris? Yes. Nelson?
Yes.
Seifert?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move to the next item 7C, which is a public hearing for Boardman Building Brownfield Plan. We'll open that public hearing at 10:05 and hear the presentation.
Good morning again. This is Ann Jamison with Grand Traverse County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. I want to introduce the development team as part of the public hearing process. We have Ken Richmond and Eric Gertzner here representing the developers and their consultant, Susan Wenslick. We've been working with this group for about 7 to 9 months now as well. This is a City of Traverse City project. It's an adaptive reuse of an existing building that's actually right across the street from the governmental building. When you walk out, you can see the former Ida Tompkins School. The neighborhood was very much behind this project in that they wanted to see this project, this building in particularly adaptively reused and not demolished. So the development team worked with TCAP School District, Traverse City School District, and went through a whole RFP process to acquire the project property in order to really meet the needs and goals and objectives of the school district as well as the City of Traverse City, and not demolishing this historic building. So the project went before the City of Traverse City Commission on September 3rd and received unanimous support. It then came to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority on September 16th, I believe. The 12th. And again, received unanimous support. So on that note, I will pass the baton over to Susan Wenslick with Fishback, and she will give a PowerPoint for your board. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, my name's Eric Gerstner. Up until a few years ago, Ken and I were neighbors on Webster Street, living right across from the TCAP's admin building that we had viewed for decades. We always wondered what would happen to it someday. My kids walked across the street to the bus stop and threw balls against the sides of the building, never broke any windows. Fast forward to the building being offered for sale last fall, Ken and I were approached by multiple friends and neighbors to try to save the building after it became known that the only other offers was to tear the building down. A lot of work and many sleepless nights has led us here to try to complete our vision for what we think is the best design and use that both preserves the building, addresses multiple environmental issues, and provide much needed workforce housing. Some of this vision can only happen with the Brownfield and Workforce Housing TIF. Since we started the project, it's actually become a lot more personal to me. During the early course of the project, I became aware that one of our workers is truly homeless. He lives in his van, and others are quite housing insecure. While this project will not solve our area's affordable housing crisis, we believe it is one step that can help. Thank you very much for considering this.
Thank you.
I'm Ken Richmond, partner with Eric. The plan that we're proposing we think is a good mix of what the neighborhood already is. It has a lot of support from most everybody that we presented it to. It's 3 floors. The top floor would be 4 market rate condominiums. The middle level is 1 office condominium, and the basement, the lower level, Eric and I will own, and there'll be 12 workforce apartments in the lower level. They're very small, they're very modest, but they're right in the middle of Traverse City. We get to save a resource. We get to save a building that's perfectly fine. In fact, the more we dig into it, the better we think it is. It needs a lot of love, and that's what we're working on. It's not a greenfield development. And it provides workforce housing right where we need it. With support of you guys, we could start real heavy lifting of construction with Cunningham Limp really early spring. We're doing a deep clean there now, but the real heavy lifting could start in a few months. Thank you, Ann, for helping us with this application, and thank you guys for listening to us.
Nate. Oops. Like everyone watching you when you're trying to type.
All right, I have it on my. Much. Good morning. I'm Susan Wenslick. I'm with Fishbeck. We have offices here in Traverse City where I sometimes show up for work. Mostly I work in my living room. I've been working with Eric and Ken on this project, which has been so cool. One of my projects in my previous life was Grand Traverse Commons, and so to have another old building in Traverse City that I can help get saved has been really gratifying. So if you followed the news, a year or so ago, TCAP's got 2 offers on this building. One was to tear the building down and build a big shiny condominium. The other one was Eric and Ken's offer, and it came in at less money than the other offer, but TCAP's was so committed to having this building saved and reusing it and keeping this building that's so important to the fabric of this neighborhood that they chose to take less money and sell it to Ken and Eric. As Eric and Ken mentioned, 12 apartments, and these are affordable, and this, I think, goes to Commissioner Andrews' concerns. These are going to be affordable for people earning as little as 60% of your area median income. And in Traverse City, that's about $20 an hour. So these are your service workers. These are public servants, healthcare workers. When I did this presentation for the city of Traverse City at that time, about a month ago, there were 2 positions open, one in the city and one in the county for public safety officers, a county sheriff and I think a firefighter in Traverse City. And both of those positions earned about 60 to 80% of the area median income. So this is housing that could actually house your public servants that work for the city and the county. At the very bottom corner under the picture there, we're expecting the lowest end rents to be about $1,000 a month. And as they mentioned, this is a small apartment. That's going to be a studio, but maxing out at about $1,575, $1,600 a month. That's super affordable. And when you look at downtown Traverse City, that's criminally cheap. So one of the concerns with this project or the site, we found as we were doing the environmental due diligence, there is contamination. So this is more of a traditional brownfield site as well as being a housing, qualifying as a housing project. So we have environmental contamination to deal with as well, potentially. Under state requirements, Otwell Momby's been doing sampling on the inside of the building because there's a plume of contamination coming from off-site. We're making sure that the building doesn't have any vapor intrusion issues that are going to be dangerous for the people who live in the building. Our hope is that that the levels are not coming into the building, that they're that they're going to be safe without doing any extraordinary measures. That would significantly reduce our environmental costs. And that would mean less money that we use in tax increment financing. So as has been mentioned, it's super expensive to build new buildings, and it's even more than that to rehab an old 100-and-something-year-old building in downtown Traverse City. This project, the numbers don't work. Eric and Ken mentioned that the upper level was going to be condos. Those are going to be million-dollar condos. This money is not for those condos. Those folks are going to be paying property taxes that help subsidize the lower floor. But even selling those condos at $1 million a piece, and I'll show you a table in just a second, there's not enough revenue coming in from the rents and the sales of condos to cover their debt. So they're borrowing. This project is going to cost about $10 million to build. And the money that they've got coming in from selling the condos will total about $6 million. So we've got about $4 million they'll be financing, and that will be paid off over time with their rent revenues. The problem is, and the two important lines on this table are the two bottom ones. Their annual rent revenues at those lowered rents, the affordable lowered rents, will be $170,000 a year, but their debt payments are going to be about $270,000 a year. So we're looking at $100,000 a year that we need to make up somehow in order to make this project work, because nobody's going to do this if they're going to lose $100,000 a year. So that's what the TIF would cover. The cost to build the building, to have people living in the lower level at rents that are super affordable, and still be able to pay the debt service. And I'm sure you're enjoying these beautiful pictures of the interior of the building. Ken and Eric do offer tours in case you would like to tour the inside of the building. In fact, it's open today, so you can go in over after the meeting. So the Brownfield TIF will not pay for any of the condo units. They're not going to pay for $1 million condos. They're not going to pay for the office floor. The way that we set the budget up is all the costs for developing the lower level and about a third of the cost for shared spaces like the elevator or shared infrastructure like the parking lot, the heating, the plumbing. So it's been prorated so that none of the incentive goes to pay for $1 million condos. Those folks don't need it. And a copy of the budget is in the Brownfield plan that was included in your packets, so you can take a look at that. One thing I want to point out, there was a little bit of discussion earlier about the tax rate, because these are non-homesteaded, non-principal residence exemptions, they're rental units. The property taxes are higher. People who have a primary residence exemption pay lower property taxes. In this case, because they're rentals, those property taxes are being generated and paid by Ken and Eric, and those ordinarily would go to the state of Michigan. So in this case, under the TIF plan, those taxes come back to Ken and Eric, and that pays for 46% of this project. So the local taxes in this case are paying 54% of those costs, the $4 million-ish, but 46% comes from the state of Michigan. Thank you, state of Michigan. No property taxes have been paid on this property in 100 years. Nobody's losing money. And under a TIF plan, ordinarily nobody loses money anyway. There's the baseline tax amount that always gets paid, but nobody's losing money on this deal. This is bringing housing to downtown Traverse City that otherwise is really not that available in this area, certainly not in downtown. I've already talked about a whole bunch of this stuff, but I do want to bring your attention to the second to the last bullet. There's always a plan B. If the TIF isn't approved, as I said earlier, it's a $100,000 a year loss in, they're not going to do the project if they're going to lose $100,000 a year at it. So plan B is that they will make the basement units condos instead of rentals. And the numbers work if we can price those condos and sell them at between $400,000 and $500,000 a piece. So instead of 12 apartments, it would be 8 condos. And that's the only way that this project works with the construction costs if we can't do the subsidized rentals. So our ask today, of course, is approval of the TIF plan. And the second bullet here gives you an idea of how the TIF that we're requesting is being split out. The total amount of the Brownfield plan is $4,439,000. Out of that, just under $3.5 million would go back to the developers. If our environmental costs come in lower, that number is lower. $107,000 is going to TCAPS. Part of the deal that Eric and Ken have with TCAPS is that if the Brownfield plan is approved, TCAPS moving costs get covered. That's an eligible activity under a Brownfield plan. The $222,000 to the BRA is for their administrative costs to manage the TIF for a period of 27 years. And then $785,000 goes to the local Brownfield revolving fund at the end of the project. As Ann mentioned, the county or city commission approved this unanimously. The BRA approved it unanimously. We had great conversations at both, and we're happy to answer any of your other questions about the project.
Commissioner Walter.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for you. One, it said in your presentation, you shared that the rents are set to be income qualified for workforce housing in the 60 to 80% of AMI range, but that you would allow people up to 100% in those?
Right. The price, yeah.
So why not stop at 80? Why go to 100?
That's
So
that's a good question.
I can maybe answer that.
Yes.
I mean, this is the 60 to 120% AMI is the required price point set by MSHDA, like the AMI. The disadvantage of not allowing up to that 100% AMI is that if not enough applicants come in to rent those affordable workforce housing units, essentially they're going to be out of pocket in that, you know, they can't rent that out because they can't find an income qualified tenant. So we wanted to offer some flexibility that's allowable under the MSHDA program, but still really focusing on the price point of that 60 to 80% rental basis. But again, we want this project to succeed. They need renters to occupy those spaces. And should there not be enough applicants coming in at that lower 60 to 80% rent in an area medium income qualifying price point, that still allows folks up to that 100% to come in.
Very honestly, it retains flexibility for the developers. We know we can't make these over the income or the rents for 100% AMI, but if their costs come in higher, you know, they can increase the rents a little bit from the amounts that were in the first slide, and that's why I said approximately in that first slide.
So what are we really looking at then? If you can charge more, aren't you going to charge more to cover the costs? Because there is no world in Traverse City right now where you won't get people to come and pay those rents.
Exactly.
So I feel like that's kind of a moot point. So if you can charge up to 100, you probably would.
Well,
right?
You know, if I think Ken and Eric are, and I don't want this to sound cheesy, I guess. This is a community project. You know, this is something that they are doing as because they are part of this community. If it was just about making money, they'd make all of them condos. So, you know, with the subsidy, the numbers work, but they're not looking to make a ton of money. Their profit in our pro forma was at about 12%, and that's plenty. Okay.
And I can add a little bit. So when we started the TIF and Brownfield process, we knew that to make this happen, there were certain limits, and one of them seemed to be the 100% AMI. So we started on that route. When Susan asked us what the rents would be, and both Ken and I have rentals, both commercial and residential, in Traverse City, we told her what we thought the rents would be based on these. That turns out that it would easily hit the 80%. And I think Susan probably sees that some of them would hit the 60%. So I think that's what accounts for a discrepancy in what we anticipate the rents to be would qualify for the lower, but application-wise, we started at the 100 and didn't see a need to lower that. But, so that's just a little history.
So would you accept a friendly amendment to only allow up to 80?
We would have to take some, I'd have to do some research on that. So I don't think we can say that right now, but that's just the history of how we got to where we are right today.
And this is zone commercial, correct?
It's a.
I think it's D1.
We changed the zoning as we were buying it to include almost anything. It's the same zoning that happens on 8th Street 2 doors away. So
So it allows for short-term rentals is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but we've signed our life away that we will never do that. So
It's
Wow.
appropriate
it's
zone
within
for that area.
But you could do that.
No, we can't.
No, they
There's a
can't.
deed restriction
Okay.
on this
Yeah,
one.
it really, truly, we have committed to.
You could if you
forever.
don't go through Brownfield, that you
No,
obviously could.
I don't
So
think it's
this
dependent
will
on
help.
Brownfield.
Well, in this case, it's going to be restricted.
There's a couple of the units that showed up on the board that are relatively large, that can get higher rents just because they're larger, and there could be a small little family in there, and that might be easier for us to do if we have 100% for those. I'm really sure, at least in the near future, that the smaller units, which are about half of them, they will be people that are earning 80%, just because that's what the market is at this point. You know, they're very modest, they're very small places. There aren't going to be families trying to get in there. They're not big enough.
Commissioner Nelson.
I want to thank you, gentlemen, for taking this project on. It kind of reminds me of the Building 50 project in a much smaller scale. I was never so glad to be wrong as when Ray Minervini took on that project, and I thought, that's never going to work, and I told him that, and he gave me a hug. He said, but you guys are sticking your neck out on a project. But from a community member, thank you. That says a lot about you guys. I'm excited about being able to help support you in this. You guys could just go market rate, do some nice condos, short term. You could do a lot of things there. But I'm glad that you guys are going the hard route, and so I'll be supporting this, and I appreciate you guys being here. So thank you.
I'm just curious if you're going to keep the building name, Ida Tompkins.
Oh,
Few people know who Ida was. I had the joy of knowing her, but she was quite an asset to our community for in the TCAPS school system when Traverse City was much smaller than it is now.
All of us who are 110 years old, myself included, will always think of it as the Ida Tompkins building because we've always been here.
But we are commemorating that history on the building.
Oh, wonderful.
Lobby or a cornerstone that acknowledges. I knew her too.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to mention on the short-term rentals question is that MISHA doesn't allow short-term rentals on subsidized units. So that will be part of our development agreement with the Brownfield Authority, that none of the subsidized units will be able to be used as short-term rentals, and that'll be in the leases as well.
Okay. So we need to take public comment as part of our public hearing. Would anyone like to make a public comment at this time?
Can I ask, did you tell a time that it opened yet?
10:05.
10:05.
10:05.
All right. Are you coming for public comment, or are you slipping out?
Trying to quietly slip out. With no one
Okay.
seeing it.
And everyone's looking now. So much for that. All right, we will close the public hearing at 10:28 a.m. and bring it back to the board. Commissioner Jewett.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Boardman Building Brownfield Plan as presented.
Support.
All right, I've got a motion by Jewett and support by Nelson. Further discussion. Commissioner Andrews?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I just have one question, which is, what is the period of affordability for these units? I don't think, if you said it, I missed it. I apologize.
That's okay, I may have forgotten it. The TIF plan goes out 27 years, I think. And so the affordability would be for all of those 27 years. The TIF plan, or, the reimbursement to the developers may end up being shorter if our environmental costs come in lower, shorter by a year or two. So the affordability is for the duration of the TIF plan. The developer's reimbursement under the TIF plan.
Okay.
So it's actually 25 years right now, according to the tax increment finance table. But again, as Susan pointed out, if in fact the taxes increase at a higher rate than was projected in the tax increment finance tables, that will be paid down at basically they'll meet their reimbursement period quicker. This will all be put into a development and reimbursement agreement that basically has legal requirements to the development team to follow, as well as our reporting requirements as the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. We have to certify the rent and income levels for these units on a yearly basis. So there is a lot of checks and balances that go into making sure that these stay in that affordability range for up to the 25-year period.
Okay. Let's have a roll call vote, Bonnie.
Jewett?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Seifert?
Sorry, yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you for all your hard work. We look forward to seeing the progress.
By the way, you guys
Thanks,
scared the heck out
everybody.
of me this morning. I was walking in, there was like a load of bricks or something got dumped and it jumped out of my skin. I don't know what's going on there, but thought the wall collapsed.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Could
So
we take a break?
Yeah, we're going to take a recess and come back with the consent calendar. So we'll be back in a few minutes.
Thank you, Ann. Have a good day.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
October 16th, 2024. Back from a short recess. We are all the way up to the consent calendar. Items removed. We're going to start with item B3. This is the October 2024 Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation. This was pulled by Commissioner Flynn. Commissioner Flynn.
I brought this for the agenda as the services that WRC provides our community is very important to me. And Domestic Abuse Awareness Month serves as a reminder that behind closed doors, many face the proverbial battle for the safety and for their safety and dignity. This month, let us break the silence, shed light on often hidden struggles, and stand up united in support of all survivors. So with that said, I'd really like to bring up Juliet Schultz and Board of Directors member Jane Hayes, two of my favorite people, just to say a few words about the work done in the community.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. Thanks for having us here today. Not only do we appreciate you taking the time to approve this domestic violence resolution, but also by acknowledging this, you're acknowledging that all people have the right to live without fear. And we know domestic violence is about power and control. We started in 1975, and to this day, we're still battling with domestic violence. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men will experience domestic violence at the hands of their intimate partner in their lifetimes. And the Women's Resource Center is the only organization here in the 4-county region providing 24-hour service to survivors. So thank you so much for acknowledging that this is an issue in our community by passing this resolution today, by standing with us, and agreeing that all people deserve to live without fear. I'm now going to introduce my friend and board member, Jane Hayes.
Welcome, Jane.
Good morning. I am Jane Hayes, and I do live in Traverse City and District 3 of the County Commission, and I am a member of the board of the Women's Resource Center and a past president of that board. I'm very proud of that. I've served on the board for about 8 years now. I consider myself a representative of the community who has really continued a 40-year association with the organization. Started out as a volunteer, served as an intern working for a social work degree at Michigan State University, worked there in the late 80s, and have been a long supporter of the mission responding to women in violent situations. Yes, we do recognize that violence does impact men. However, women are 84% of the victims of domestic violence and are murdered twice the rate of men. Violence is also one of the biggest health issues in the country for men, women, and children. Chronic stress is caused by violence in the home is linked to chronic illnesses such as heart disease and diabetes, and certainly mental health injuries that present as depression, anxiety, and more serious issues of post-traumatic stress disorder. On behalf of the board of the Women's Resource Center, I would like to thank you for your acknowledgement of October as Domestic Violence Month. Your resolution reminds members of the community that domestic violence is occurring in our neighborhoods, and the WRC continues its 50-year history of serving and supporting the survivors. I want to thank you and also make a comment. I know Mr. Henshaw had said not to comment on other issues, but I got to as a retired social worker. Your discussion on housing is very, very significant, and I really do appreciate it as a member of the community that you've gone into this in-depth discussion. This is not a simple issue. I think we've heard some critical discussion here and very good questions. My heart has always been with those homeless on the street or those coming out of the state hospital way back in the 1989 when it shut down, and the severity we acknowledged by working out of mental health and trying to house those who were coming out. But the problem remains, and the solution is not a simple one. It's about certainly providing for those who have the medium incomes and providing the housing and to keep that market going. but it's also about people who are on the streets, and we know and see that every day in Traverse City. So thank you for the resolution, acknowledgement of October as Domestic Violence Week, and thank you for your service and your discussions on the housing issue.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. And with that, I will make the motion to approve the proclamation of making October 2024 Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Support.
Motion by Flynn, support by Jewett. Quick on the draw. All right, any further discussion?
Keep moving.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move forward to item B7, a request to pursue subordinate of a section of the Wetland Reserve Program assessment at Maple Bay Parks and Nature Area. Commissioner Andrews?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward. I just have a couple of questions. I read the materials. My question is, first question is I understand the easement area, but does that correlate directly with a wetland area? And, right, because you can have an easement outside depending on the scope and the terms of the easement.
Sure. So so John Chase, Director of Parks and Facilities, Grand Traverse County. The 135-acre portion of the 452-acre property that is Maple Bay, that 135-acre portion is covered by the Wetland Reserve Program easement. That portion has some areas that are wetlands and some areas that are uplands. This particular portion, or this particular half-acre section, is an upland section. It is not wet, and it is actually an old two-track.
So there's not going to be a need for a fill permit for this section of the trail?
No.
That was my question. And with that, I'll make the motion to approve the motion as presented.
Support.
Motion by Andrews, support by Morris. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
For being here. And thanks for all you're doing in the parks. Still hearing good things. Next, we'll go to B8, the resolution requesting state support for intersection safety improvements. Commissioner Jewett.
Yeah, I pulled this off because actually Commissioner Morris has taken the biggest lead on this and everything, but it covers the corner of both of our districts, but Gray Road and Cedar Run Road. And, there's been a number of accidents out there. Thankfully, none of them have been fatal, but it's a very well-traveled area. There's a lot of traffic there, and we feel that something needs to be done. We've met with the Road Commission, and there's options out there somewhere between the $300,000 to $400,000 up to over $1 million to address that issue there. One of the big things that we're looking to is next year with construction down on M22 and M72 and everything, how we feel a lot of that traffic's going to be rerouted. But amongst our conversation with the Road Commission and Leelanau County and stuff, we don't have the local funds to do what we need to do there. So we're going to try to ask the state to assist in that, and that was the substance of this motion. But I'll hand it off to Commissioner Morris to add anything that she would like to add.
Yes, thank you. And ironically, on Monday after our meeting at the airport, I was almost involved in an accident going through there because someone turned off from Gray Road, making a left onto Cedar Run directly in front of the car that was in front of me. And so it happens there all the time. In fact, it happens so frequently, accidents happen there so frequently that some of the neighbors in that area keep an accident kit in their home so that they can go out to help people. Yeah. And it's gotten to the point, that I get a message weekly about accidents and near misses. I get photos and videos, and I understand that we are under. We don't have the funds to do what needs to be done. But the other issue is that sometimes they're prioritized not by how dangerous they are, but the fact that nobody's died there yet, And as the mother of a child who died because of a speeding driver, I find that unacceptable. I think that our government needs to look more at the ounce of prevention instead of the pound of cure that, and so I'm advocating really for my neighbors, for my community, and I feel very passionate about it. We are growing, and it's at an enormous rate, but our infrastructure isn't keeping up, and we really need to be proactive about that. So that's where we are.
Okay, so we need a motion for this item.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve item B as discussed.
Motion by Jewett, support by Morris.
Nice.
I saw you nod.
Now we're picking on me.
Commissioner Walter.
A couple things that was mentioned, speed in here. What kind of, I don't think there's anybody here from the Sheriff's Department. What has been done in terms of extra presence there with the speed, or implementing some of that? Has that been looked into already?
Good question. Actually, our community police officer has been very responsive, Deputy McGarrian, and he's had a bigger presence there. He has also very recently installed, we have a speed sign that takes data, and we've put that out there, or he has put that out there. And so we're collecting data. We're more
Has he
present.
been ticketing more people?
But yeah, seems to be. I couldn't tell you how many he's ticketed, but the part of the issue is also line of sight. The hill, coming over that hill. I don't know if you're familiar. People are topping that hill at 60 instead of 55, and now if there's a slowdown in traffic, there's rear-ended crashes, and it's a big thing. I suspect that we just paved old logging roads years and years and years ago and called it good, but yeah.
Commissioner Jewett.
Yeah, and line of sight is a problem in both east and west.
Yes.
To the west is a hill, to the east is a curve and a hill and everything. Some of the data when they did it 2 or 3 years ago, I don't remember what they told us in regards to the speed study, was as little as like 20, 25 mile an hour, but some over 100 mile an hour and everything, and coming over them hills and them curves. That's where the challenge is, because that at times is dang near a blind intersection and everything. So as Commissioner Moore said, a lot of people at the state level, like MDOT and different entities that work with roads and everything, they don't really consider it because there's been no fatalities. But the thing is, how long do we have to wait to have a fatality? Because it's just, every day is playing the lottery there. I drive off through there off and on and everything, and it's very challenging to come off from Gray Road at times because of the traffic and the line of sight and everything. So anyway, that's why we brought this forward here, trying to seek some help from our state representatives at the state level to see if there's any potential funding, especially knowing that next year is going to be real challenging with M22, M72 being greatly restricted.
And our road commission has gotten now a safety grant to do a traffic study there,
Yeah.
so
Commissioner Andrews.
it's moving.
Thank you. I'm sure all of us have areas in our districts that have challenges, and I'd be curious, this is a request for the state to provide funding, and it appears, it's drafted as a funding restraint at the Road Commission. But it doesn't, the Road Commission is responsible for setting the speed limits.
No.
No.
State police do that.
State limits. What about a four-way what is the proposed fix here that is outside of the budget of the Road Commission?
Well, we had 3 different tiers. And now, just to get a full picture, what we did was we pulled together not only our road commission, but also Leelanau's road commission, because there is a very fair amount of traffic that comes from Leelanau to come to Traverse for work every day. So we pulled together both road commissions, both of their board of commissioner chairs, and our township supervisor, and we got ourselves into a room. We had a meeting. I had a meeting with Representative Kofia, and then we went back for another meeting based on what she had told me to do, and this is a resulting action of all of that put together over the course of about a month.
And I appreciate that, but is there a proposed fix?
Yes.
Well, there's
Good, better, and
there's
best.
3 proposed fixes based on the dollars available.
Mhm.
One is as little as $200,000, and that would be temporary lighting, signaling, especially during the construction next year of 22 and 72. The next fix was at about $500,000. That would be permanent lighting with left turn lanes. One of the major concerns was because of the line of sight and speed and everything, is the fact that there would probably be more high-speed rear-end crashes. And then the third fix, they figured it'd be right about $1 million, give or take a little bit, maybe a little bit more, but would be a roundabout design. They do think that they can minimize some of them design costs, because we looked at ones like River Road and Keystone. That's kind of a similar intersection, so they might be able to take that design and tweak it. But anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 to $1 million for a fix.
And just given the priority of this road and the upcoming construction, is there not a $200,000 in the road commission's budget in the next?
The way we understood it with the conversation was no, not right now.
I understand that entities have been making requests to the county for shortfalls on road needs. Maybe they should submit a request to the county for a shortfall. It looks like it's a dangerous situation, but I would be interested to see additional solutions other than just asking the state for funding.
Where's the MPO with this?
Well, that did get brought up. That was not on a project for this last year. The executive committee will be meeting, this is going to be brought before them for the next funding year. Everything, so it'd be 26, because 25 years been funded already. So, but it will be brought up. It's considered one of them local travel routes that could be a priority, a connecting route. Everything,
Right,
so it would qualify under the MPO. It's just a matter of how it gets rated with the MPO and what the MPO actually approves, because there's a list of projects.
I have to make a correction on the motion, because the resolution in the packet, the very last paragraph, lists the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners, not the Grand Traverse.
Oh, oops.
Just if the mover and seconder are okay with that correction.
Yeah.
If this is meant to be the...
Leelanau County has already passed this resolution last week.
Yeah. And I want to commend you, Commissioner Morris, on your leadership. You really grabbed this topic, and you brought in Leelanau's chair, and you brought me in and Brad in, and Road Commission, and you got everyone in the same room to come up with this. And I'll just say, the way we do funding for roads, sadly, is based on deaths. It's a sad truth that when we look at where we're putting the funding, it's based on putting out that fire. And I had a cousin pass away at an intersection that has since been upgraded, and it's like, man, why couldn't we get on top of that sooner? So this is a great example of something to send to Lansing and request special allocations, because it's just the way the formulas work. There's not funding for it, but it's needed. So communities all over the state do this, and this is a great example that any commissioner has something in their district like that. I would encourage you to bring a resolution before this board and give our state reps and state senators a shopping list for this area, because that's how our government works.
They're kind of promoting our growth, so why don't you promote the infrastructure too?
All right, so any further comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are done with the consent calendar and ready to start our meeting. We are at item 9A. This is a request for a closed session to discuss written attorney-client privilege legal opinion from the county's civil counsel as permitted by MCL 15.2681H. And this will affect further items in the agenda. That's why it's at the front. So do we have a motion to that effect?
Moved.
Moved by Seifert, supported by Jewett. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Morris,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Seifert,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Jewett,
Yes.
Henschel.
Yes, motion carries. We will retire to a separate chamber for our closed session, and we'll attempt to be expedient and come back and finish our agenda. Thank you, everybody.
Where are we going?
night.
Watch yourself, kiddo. You roll right into your. My pink one is dirty.
I'll make a motion.
Cold in here.
No, it feels good.
It was warm in there, wasn't it?
It was warm in there.
We were not all back. Three.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we come out of closed session at 11:33 a.m.
Support.
A motion by Jewett, support by Andrews to come out of closed session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are back in open session. Thank you to our studio audience for being so patient. Studio audience. Okay. Mr. Nordford, did you want to, or Mr. Roger?
I think it would be appropriate when we address the item is to have Mr. Baker present to you his agenda item and discuss with the board just some high-level information about the topic at hand. I want to also bring up that Superintendent Rothwell is here from Kingsley Area Schools, that if you have questions of him or if he may have questions of you, that opportunity be afforded to him. So thank you, Jim.
Okay, so we're at 10A. This is our 2024 apportionment report. Welcome.
Thank you. Jim Baker, Director of Equalization. And throughout the year, I receive these tax rate requests. I pre-screen them for this apportionment report in which the commissioners make a decision on what is a proper levy within the county. In doing this, I had an issue with Kingsley Area Schools, and I have written a comment that says it's my belief that Kingsley Area Schools have not brought forward the proper 2023 millage rate permanently reduced for column 5, which would be this column 5, the starting millage. I believe they have not brought that forward from column 7 of last year's statement, in which they amended and certified it to me. If they would have brought that number forward from the last year's amended certified L4023, it would have been the 18.5647 that is further down in that paragraph there. And I did accompany that in the packet to the commission with the instructions for column 5 and with last year's certified amended statement from the Kingsley Area Schools.
Okay, so we have a resolution.
Yes, we have a current resolution. I would offer to read in a suggested amended resolution, which would require first a motion approving the amendment, and then second, if it's the board's decision, a approval of the resolution as amended. And I will read it into the record.
Please proceed.
2024 apportionment report. Whereas the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners met in regular session on October 16th, 2024, and reviewed the request to approve the 2024 apportionment report. And whereas the Grand Traverse Board of Commissioners reviewed the apportionment report in compliance with MCL Section 211.37, and whereas the County Equalization Director has raised concerns as to the millage levels reflected in the Kingsley Area Schools tax request as reflected in their submitted Form L4029, and whereas the required Form L4029 requesting the tax rate levy has been received from each taxing jurisdiction in the county in compliance with Article 9, Section 31 of the state constitution and other tax limitations, excepting only the submission from the Kingsley Area Schools. And whereas this rate includes the Headley Amendment and other statutory and constitutional tax rate limitations and have been reviewed by the County Equalization Department. And whereas should any changes allowed by legislation of election occur after this date, adjustments will be made and this report will be amended. Now therefore be it resolved that the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners approve the apportionment report and authorize completion of the required certification statement as presented, accepting only the L4029 from the Kingsley Area Schools. Be it further resolved that the L49 tax request from the Kingsley Area Schools is rejected as submitted, and the Kingsley Area Schools is directed to file an amended L4029 that conforms to the recommendations of the County Equalization Director as concurred in by the Michigan State Treasury Department staff.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, motion by Jewett, support by Nelson. I would just clarify that it is accepting, not accepting.
Yeah. Yes.
Just so we're clear in how that's written, everyone
That's with
understands.
an E.
Yeah, as in rejecting.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, discussion
On the amendment.
on the amendment to, it's an amended resolution, not amendment to the resolution. Right, okay. Okay,
So can somebody talk logistically about what that means for Kingsley Area Schools, when the timing, et cetera, either now or subsequent to this meeting?
Jim, would you just briefly, for the public and for the schools, explain what happens from here if this passes?
If this passes, it allows the Kingsley Area Schools to reconsider what they've submitted,
And you've had previous conversations with them. They know what?
Yes, this
Okay.
is now in its second year. I thought it was resolved a year ago with this amended 2023 form that they sent. I thought we were resolved, and then when it didn't end up being resolved, since you are the ones that make the final determination, and I saw this discrepancy, I brought it to you.
Okay. Anything to add?
And Jim, just confirming, it's our intent that this be an agenda item at the November 20th full Board of Commissioners meeting, and we have until December 1st to submit this information to the state?
Yes, I mean, there are two ballot languages that could cause us to amend the apportionment report anyway, but if this went to the November 20th meeting, and it has to be resolved by then so that the treasurers can get the tax bills printed correctly, and then I have to have it to the state by December 1st.
Okay. Jim, I want to thank you for your work on this. I know it's not always easy to have to be the guy to hold the line, and you've done a great job. So
Thank you.
I know the Wexford's Civil Council has agreed that you're right. You've sent to Lansing. They've agreed that your interpretation is correct. There's plenty of opinions out there supporting what you're doing here, and I think it's great that the board stands behind you. So.
They were listening to our civil council as well.
Yes, yeah, as well. All right, any further discussion before we vote? Let's have a roll call vote, Bonnie.
Morris? Yes.
Sorry.
Hold on one second. Okay. So,
This one can be a voice vote.
okay, so the first vote is to approve the amendment as Civil Council has read to us. You said that can be a voice vote, so all in favor of that say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And now the second vote will be the same mover and seconder for a roll call vote.
Just a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Andrews, supported by
Walter.
Walter, okay. And he was smiling at me. Anyways, roll call vote, please, Bonnie.
I want to make sure I get this straight. So the first motion was to accept the amended apportionment report or the resolution.
Yes.
Amended resolution.
Amended resolution. And the second one is to
Pass the resolution
amended resolution.
As amended.
as amended. Lawyers got to complicate things, you know.
yeah.
Somebody
Okay.
out of jail.
Right.
Morris? Yes. Nelson?
Yes.
Seifert?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Jewett?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes, motion carries. Anything else on this topic? All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 10B, 10B, appointment of interview ad hoc committees. We have, per your packet, 10 boards and commissions which need interviews. There, I'm sure, are a lot of people that are already on those boards applying for their seat again for renewals. I'm going to read through them. I've got Building Codes, Road Commission, Veterans Affairs, DHHS, Traverse Area District Library. We have the Cherry Capital Airport. We have Bay Area Transportation Authority, Grand Traverse County Parks and Rec. We have the Economic Development Corporation and Commission on Aging. I've taken these, I've got 2 committees I'm going to recommend, and you're welcome to pick that apart if you want, but I'm going to recommend, I tried to go based on who's on committees, who serves as role as the commissioner on those committees. It's probably not perfect, but for Building Codes, Road Commission, Veterans Affairs, DHHS, and Tattle, the first 5, I've got Andrews, McAllister, and Jewett. And then on the second 3, which is the Airport, Beta, Parks, EDC, and Commission on Aging, I've got Walter, Nelson, and Henschel.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
As the only one that's guaranteed to be sitting here after the first of the year, and I'm also on Beta, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring to at least one of those boards.
Okay. You want to be on
Your
the
choice,
second, well, we'll just add you to the second committee. So it'll be a committee of 4. And
So moved.
okay, motion by Walter,
Second.
support by Flynn.
Sorry, can you?
I'll read them once more before we vote.
Which one was Seifert on?
Seaford is added to the Airport, Beta, Parks, EDC, and Commission on Aging.
So that's a 4-person vote?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify about the road commission appointment. Was there a resignation? I know there was a DHHS resignation.
It's a term ending. I believe it's Hyder Chasm's term is ending at the end of the year. If I remember right, we can check with admin to clarify.
Well, I think of these 10, the terms are ending at the end of this year anyway, right?
Yeah, this is regular cycles.
Yeah.
Save for DHHS, there was a resignation, which was Hyder Chasm again.
Okay.
And that's so that one we might step it up because there's currently a vacancy, and that's a 3-member board. So the sooner you can get them a 3rd person, the better. So we'll leave that to admin to send out those doodle polls and get applicants in. So is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for serving on those. Those are a lot of work.
Could we remind the public at
Sure.
the youngest age you could apply for these boards? Because I know I spoke to some students recent weeks, and
yeah,
I
good
know there's
question.
some interest.
And mention the website.
Yeah, so gtcountymi.gov, there is a link for boards and committees. So you can apply right online. I encourage everyone to apply. You have to be a Grand Traverse County resident because you're spending county tax dollars. I did have someone from Benzie reach out about veterans, and sorry, it's a county millage. We can't have representation or taxation without representation. So I believe, it depends on the board as far as the age limit. 18 is a pretty safe bet. I know for the Veterans Affairs, you have to have some military service, so it has to be a veteran. I'm not sure, if any, which ones would be available for someone under 18. So perhaps we could have our administration put that on the website if there are any that are available to people under 18, like Parks and Rec maybe, or, something that makes, that would fit, there's so many statutes involved that you've got to research every board individually. All right. Did we vote? Okay. That's all right. All right, we'll move to item 10C, updates to safety policies. Mr. Alger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With us today is Chris Reithel and Donna Kinsey and Greg Bird, team members of the Grand Traverse Safety Team, which also includes the City of Traverse City staff as well. And Chris is going to walk through a series of policies that have been updated specific to the safety of our buildings.
Hi, good morning. And
welcome, Chris.
What's that?
I said, welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Sorry. So, put in the packets a handful of policies, and so there's 4 policies that are in there, and there's also a memo that really walk through what all those changes are, right? And so, a few years ago during COVID, the safety team was disbanded for obvious reasons, and then within the last couple of years, we pulled that team back together, and so really started looking at the policies, and that first one that we looked at is that safety in the workplace policy. That one really defines what the safety team is, and so that's why we started there. And with that, we went through, we made some updates, we determined that there were some things that we could pull out of that policy and put into some existing policy, move it to some other existing policies. And those are outlined in the material that you have. So out of those sections that were removed, smoking and vaping, weapons, drug-free workplace, those were all moved to existing policies, or we're suggesting or recommending that those move to existing policies. The other aspects of that safety in the workplace is adding some more definition to the safety team as it is, and then some additional responsibilities. We also are working on some building emergency action plan templates, and so with that, we've done some work while we've been updating and working on these policies. We've created some really great templates that we're hoping to roll out as soon as the policy is hopefully approved and amended. So that's part of it. The other part that's included in the safety in the workplace policy is some work that we're doing to kind of keep up with the technological advancements that we're making. So with the workday advancements, right? So now we're looking at having employees being able to report injuries and workplace incidents through that MyGTC portal. So that's all included in this this update of the safety in the workplace policy. So that's kind of that initial one. That's the majority of the changes. The other policies that are included in there: drugs and alcohol, violence in the workplace, and compensation for time off of work for work-related injuries. It's all just kind of updating. It's adding those additional sections from safety in the workplace. And then that last policy, compensation for time off work, is including the adjustments for employees to make those, to do that within MyGTC to submit incident when incidents occur in the workplace. So I'll leave it to you guys if you have any questions.
Commissioner Jewett. I'm sorry, Commissioner Nelson.
I want to bring up the weapons policy. You've got here that at nowhere at any time as a county employee to ever be allowed to have a weapon that are not limited to guns, knives, swords, chemical explosives, and chemicals who cause harm to other persons. I don't know why that needs to be so broad. I understand there are reasons to have areas that weapons would not be allowed, specific areas for specific needs. But this might even include pepper spray. I don't know without asking that question. But one of the most dangerous situations might be as a female employee who is in a custody battle with a separated spouse that is at high risk, and we've got people working out in the field. We have people walking out to parking lots. If somebody has a concealed weapons permit, they're licensed, they've been proven to be a very safe individual, background check and everything, I'm not sure why we need to cast such a broad brush on something like that. So I would like to discuss that with the board, hear the board's wishes and their reasonings.
Yeah, I'll start off and just say The wording that it is, right? So we pulled, there was nothing updated in the wording from the weapons clause that was in that safety in the workplace, and we simply moved it to the weapons policy, right? That clause also states that, under the administrator can give approval for certain circumstances for employees to.
But the approval is an exception as opposed to an allowance, and an exception where you would not allow an employee. So as long as we're reviewing it, I'd like to discuss that.
Commissioner Seifert.
Yeah, to expand on.
I didn't have to look. I knew it would be you.
That's okay. I'll wait. Commissioner Nelson's point, I mean, yes, there's allowance for approval, but doesn't show anything that's arbitrary, quite honestly. In addition to that, it takes time. If the approval person's not here, or there's not some kind of stated way of you can get it approved, then you're going to put yourself at risk. It's Domestic Awareness Month, 2 to 1, and it's not even just a spouse or, a strange spouse. We have a large homeless population at 8:30 in the morning, comes right by here. A lot of those folks have mental health issues. We got people that have been concerns about walking in the building that may feel like they're being stalked from complete strangers. This is not, again, the CPL thing. If you want to have that as it is in a lot of places, is the defining limit. Say if you have a concealed pistol license, then you are afforded these things. The law still applies. But to say, and this to me means basically you can bring your penknife, and that's about all. I can't bring my pepper spray in, which is less than lethal, but it can, it'll give you cancer eventually if you get sprayed enough with it. I hate to be that guy. Slow learner there. But if we're going to move it over, and I appreciate that you moved it over and brought it to our attention, but this is way big overreach. This is tyrannical in nature, in my opinion. You're having one person or two people saying, Donna, I'm sorry, we love you, we appreciate your work, but from your car to the building, you're at risk. In the building, you're at risk. But if you feel like you're unsafe, then you can send me a memo, and we'll get together, and maybe we'll let you carry some pepper spray.
Well,
that's crap. Pure and simple. It's crap.
Appreciate that, Commissioners.
Is pepper spray specifically banned in this policy?
Yes.
The original clause it was, right? It is, right? And I guess I would add that we're asking really for the focus in the amendments to be on the safety in the workplace. It could be further conversations down the way with weapons in the
That's
workplace.
what I'm asking as we discuss this further.
It's really taking the same phrasing, like I said, right? And it's really asking for majority of those amendments to be in that first policy.
Commissioner Walter.
Could administration or staff speak to if there's been any feedback from staff over the years or in recent history about this? It's no change to the current policy, it's just moving it. So can you speak to that if there's any concerns from staff about that?
Certainly, this has been a long-standing policy. This is not new for us. We adhere to this policy. We had a recent circumstance where there were chemical.
Hang on a second. People are talking. I don't think they can hear you.
We adhere to the policy. It's not a new policy, and quite frankly, in the discussions of safety in the buildings, weapons don't typically materialize within those conversations. There are other issues at hand that we consider to make sure our employees and our visitors are safe within the buildings. Fully appreciate the arguments surrounding the Second Amendment, all the rights granted by God and the Constitution specific to firearms. But the employer has the right and the obligation to promulgate rules specific to their environment. And that is where that distinction starts to fold away. The MMRMA, our liability provider, has a very strong position on weapons in the workplace, and they do not support the concept of weapons in the workplace. Certainly we do have staff with firearms. We have a whole contingent of law enforcement, corrections staff, bailiffs. They all have firearms, they have weapons, and I can tell you that in the 6 years that I have been here, I have approved very few weapons in the workplace. And it's because of the position of MMRMA and their position on the weapons that are permitted, and coming from law enforcement, if you have a firearm, there is a gun in the room. It's that simple. There are requirements for safety surrounding the possession and control of that firearm. People have tendencies to leave them around. They get clunky. They don't want to carry them. They put them in a desk. They walk away. Those things happen. And unfortunately, the way the current law is in the state of Michigan and the focus on firearms, that is not an acceptable practice. So I think that any discussion, and Mr. Seifert and a couple other commissioners and I have had this conversation previously. I have complete respect for the positions. If we're going to address the weapons policy, it needs to be done so carefully, and it needs to be done in consideration of all factors.
That's what I'm asking, that we, not necessarily at this table, but with the
Sure.
committee and.
Well, my retort to that would be, if I may, Chair, is that if a bad guy wants to come in with a gun, there's the gun, so who's in control of it? There are laws, there's training, there's restrictions, you betcha. And if you're irresponsible with your firearm as an employee of the county, you should be terminated. But that doesn't mean because there's somebody that's irresponsible, I mean, we should put all of our employees at risk as a matter of practice. On top of that, there is legislation pending in other states. Well, first off, let's go back to, yes, we are a business, if you will, or a private entity, but we're one that works for the people, that's funded by the people. We're not funded by stock brokers or insurance agencies or anything like that. In addition to that, multiple states across this country have now started pending legislation saying if you deny your employees the ability to carry a gun, if they legally meet that requirement, then you are now liable and responsible for anything that happens to them that could have been stopped by them carrying a gun.
Commissioner Andrews?
Thank you. Just a clarification, as I'm reading this, it sounds like a person who works for the county would be prohibited from bringing their concealed weapon or a rifle for practice or shotgun to any county property, including any parks, like they're out on the weekend with their kids and they're I mean, if I read it correctly, prohibited on any county property. So that seems like it would be broader than the intent is, where the intent, as I understand it, is in the first paragraph where county business is conducted. But it does seem very limiting to county employees outside of their workday.
Yeah, I believe the intent of the policy is during employment activities specific with the county employer. So I can offer a little more, Commissioner Seifert and I, as I said, we've had this conversation, and it's a good, healthy conversation. Just because you have a CPL does not mean that you have the skill set associated with that CPL to make life and death decisions. We've had incidents in this building where we've had those self-auditors come in, the 1A auditors come in, and our staff reacted to that. And unfortunately for us, you do have the right to carry a firearm in this building. If you're a member of the public, you can walk right in, open carry. You can have concealed weapon, and there are interactions that can occur. So we try to contemplate those interactions and minimize them to the degree possible so that we are not exposing our county to existing liability or future liability, I should say. So if we want to have this conversation, we can remove this policy from consideration today, and we can work towards a new policy that would certainly have to go through MMRMA and legal considerations before we amend this policy.
My thought would be to form an ad hoc committee of commissioners that feel strongly about the topic. I'll just throw it out there as an idea. Commissioner Seifert, would you be willing to share something to that effect?
Absolutely.
Well, and that's a possibility. We have a safety committee standing, so that might add some confusion to the.
Is that where this came from?
Yeah,
Yes.
the safety team brought this
Yeah,
to us.
so.
Well, that was staff-based. I mean,
It's staff-based, yeah, so.
And it's obviously insufficient for some people here. That's why I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm not saying no to the ad hoc. I'm just,
Okay.
I want to clarify, and if.
Okay.
Well, people attending the ad hoc could be members from the safety committee.
Absolutely,
anyway.
yeah, absolutely.
So I'd be on that ad hoc.
Okay. And do you have interest, Commissioner Andrews?
I'm willing, but that's not why I was raising my
Okay.
hand.
Go ahead.
I'd be happy to if you want another person, but
Okay.
my thought is that we should, because this is a longstanding policy that's been there for a long time, and its absence would have potentially immediate impacts on our insurance, that we should leave it in place with the idea that we bring back amendments as opposed to not approving this. This isn't a change. It should, I think the point is that this deserves a closer look, but my perspective is we should move it forward. We're not changing anything by approving today.
I thought this was already or parts of this are already in place.
Right, that's my point. Yeah.
Okay, so if we do nothing, it's still in place.
Well, no, then we don't adopt the
other
safety
changes.
policies that they are
The other
asking us
parts
to
of it.
change. I think that's, at least that was my understanding.
Okay.
We could take the action requested. It wouldn't change the language. It would move the weapons policy to a different place. And then I think the point to the commissioner's concerns is that we would then look at how it, it could tighten up or otherwise.
And that's my understanding as well, Commissioner. Is that true?
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
That was a motion.
Second.
Okay, so your motion is to pass it as presented?
The safety plan as the updated safety policies as presented.
I was assuming we were covering all of these, or are we just going one by one?
No, that's what the resolution at the end is titled.
It's the safety team is who's making these recommendations.
There's just a lot of policies.
So
Yes, it wasn't meant to only be the safety, it's just that's how the resolution was
Okay,
presented.
yeah, that's what I understand.
Okay, so your motion is to pass it as presented?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
motion
Okay, go ahead.
by Andrews, support by Walter to pass it as presented. That's your full motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right, further discussion on the motion?
We are going to have further discussion, though,
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah.
On the ad hoc.
Also,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, with a roll call vote, please.
Nelson,
Yes.
Seifert,
No.
Walter,
Yes.
sorry, Andrews,
Yes.
Flynn? Yes.
Hewitt,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Henschel.
No. Motion carries. Commissioner Jewett.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we create an ad hoc to work with the current safety team and whoever else is deemed appropriately by administration of myself, Commissioner Seifert, and I believe it was Commissioner Andrews.
Support.
To discuss this further weapons policy.
Okay, motion by Jewett, support by Nelson. All right, is anybody else interested in being on that committee? Sounds like we got 3 good points of view to bring together. All right, so motion is to create an ad hoc of Seifert, Jewett, and Andrews. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, it brings
I
us,
would like to thank first thank Chris for presenting today on behalf of the safety team. The members of that safety team are listed in your packet. They include both city and county, and they've taken the lion's share of effort to make sure that our policies are intact, and the underlying EA plans that were for the building plans, they've taken that on as well, and I just appreciate the work.
and you look really sharp today, Chris.
Yeah. Looks fantastic.
All right, moving forward to 11A, discussion of recommendations for staffing requests. Mr. Alger.
Yes, at our study session last week, we heard several presentations by the courts and by the sheriff, and we need to have some guidance from this board as to which of those positions should be considered for costing out. As we said earlier, or at the study session last week, we are shy $2 million in terms of expenses over revenues, and we have to make some decisions. And those positions were not included in that shortfall. So any position that we add to that existing $50 million general fund budget is going to exacerbate that delta. So we have full confidence that we are going to be able to balance this budget. Chris, Dean, and I have talked about how that would look. We could do it today, but without knowing which positions you would like to consider, we need to hear that before we move forward. So I would like to have the commissioners give us guidance as to what positions they would like to see costed out and included in the 2025 budget. If you recall correctly, there was the discharge planner, the crime analyst, and the treatment court, as well as the community court.
I seem to remember during the discussion, we were hoping for some more information. And so I'm not really ready to say, yes, for sure, we should add these to the budget without more information on some of those positions. But I'm happy to see that information brought back. I mean, there's nothing in here. There's nothing really to look at.
Refresh my memory on the request then. What was asked for?
I think we were asking, what is the full cost, the fully loaded employment cost for each of the 4 positions?
We were also looking at the bigger picture of some of the jail positions. We were talking about overtime, like the overall budget of those positions as relates to, are we going to get rid of one of those? Are
Right.
we? So I want to see all of that information. So I'm happy to continue this discussion about these, but without that information, I can't really give you direction on, yes, for sure, add those to the budget.
Okay, very well.
Commissioner Morris?
Yes, I know that there was some discussion around the jail services, and just to let you know, that will be on the agenda for Northern Lakes tomorrow, the 150 item on the agenda, and it will be here in Traverse City at the Hall Street location for anyone who would like to attend that, to give you more information on that.
What time does that mean again?
This particular item is set to be at 1:50, but you know how that goes. It starts at 1 o'clock.
Commissioner Seifert, were you next? Or?
Well, I was just going to say there's also, when we talked about that, we also talked about that the courts as well as the jail are kind of looking for positions that cross over perhaps. And we kind of had made some comments about how does that work? Well, instead of hiring 2 people doing 50% of the same thing, why don't we hire 1 person to do it all? But that was all I really had to add on that.
Commissioner Andrews?
I remember that.
My sense was that the 86th District Court Treatment Court Coordinator position that the Judges Cooney and Stepka presented was a positive request. I don't know that they've got empty seats at that. It sounds like just the opposite. They don't have sufficient staffing as opposed to at the jail and potentially law enforcement where there are seats that or positions, FTEs, that haven't been filled in some number of years. So my personal perspective was that particular of the 4, and I'm not saying any of the other 3 don't warrant further discussion. They do. But to my mind, that was one that should be in the budget for 2025 going forward.
My only hesitation with that one was the fact that even though they were going to free up some probation officers' time, which they said was about 25% of their time is dedicated to those to that position right now that doesn't exist, is the fact that they're not increasing the more people servicing. And I would think if we're going to free up 25% of their time, that they would have more time to accommodate more people in need. So that is my reservation with that.
I do remember also that there was comments that it's also the judge's time to see more people at the drug court, not just the probation's officer's time to see more people. It's they also don't have the time. There's not enough time for the judges to see that many clients as well.
You're talking about the supervisor position, right?
It's a combined coordinator, and oversight.
I think it's, if you look at their chart, their hierarchy, if you want, or whatever, there's really a big gap in middle management. I'm not necessarily a big fan of over middle management, but I think it would be very helpful to, however, as was brought up at the study session, there are changes that are coming where I don't believe that they're completely accurate saying that we don't have probation officers that actually have work that's affected by Antrim County. We are doing work for them. There's going to be some of that. But I like the idea of having that blended person as a supervisor as far as the rest of them, and I like the criminal analyst, but as far as the rest of them, I'm kind of more of like, let's wait and see.
And I'll also say about the court position, I don't think they ever said it couldn't equal growth. It wasn't just right at the plan right now to bring, they wanted it kind of like to sit in and see what happens with this position available and filled.
The other thing on the courts I would mention is I did get a phone call yesterday from the chair of the Antrim County Board of Commissioners. They are somewhat passionate about separating their courts, and I would question how any staffing changes would affect if they do indeed end up moving on and with their own court system. Would the employees move with them? Would we eliminate positions? So I don't know if Mr. Alger has any idea where that's at.
They
or
did
the
talk about
timeline.
that during the meeting. I don't know if you watched our study session, but they did speak to that.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't, in fact, it would open up a little more capacity.
Okay.
Today I received a letter from Antrim County indicating that they, and I did talk to Gwen Taylor, the district court administrator, yesterday afternoon. The district court has provided some positive insight to Antrim County in terms of them separating from our district. So they are moving forward, and I believe you will eventually see a request to make a determination from your board position on support or non-support of that move.
Okay. Commissioner Andrews?
So on the crime analyst position, my perspective on that is that I would be more supportive of it if it were not a net gain, if it were, at least for the year, a shifting an existing position that hasn't been filled in some time so that it's a net equal. And I think that's, given the restraints that we seem to have on the budget, I think that's probably possible. And I would, I assume the sheriff would have some ideas about how best to achieve that. My view on the jail discharge position is that needs more discussion with the CMH, given the overlap in the job description between what that position was. Somebody's beeping.
Me, my apologies.
And those were my thoughts on those other positions at this point.
Commissioner Jewett and then Morris.
Yeah, my thoughts on the discharge planner for the jail is they have had a number of correction officer positions open for some time now. And in the last 6 years, I can only recall, I thought it was once, but they said twice at the study session there that they were at full staffing capacities for a short time with the probation officers. So I feel they have within their budget to go ahead and hire a discharge planner right now based on being down 8 or 9 corrections officers. So the money's there, and they could do it right now instead of waiting until the 2025 budget. So I do think there's definitely a need based on what we heard. I do think they can coordinate a lot of outside services and help that individuals will need and everything. But I also believe that without adding a position, there's money there for positions that are already staffed but unfilled.
Yeah, and that was the piece that we were hoping to get more information on too, was back to 2019, what those numbers looked like.
Commissioner Morris?
Yes, thank you. So as you all know, I attend meetings monthly with law enforcement and CMH all in the same room, getting together and deciding what is needed. And some of the frustration expressed in the last meeting was that they felt they weren't conveying to this board that these recommendations are the result of about 2 years of hard work on their part to discover what it is that they need. So I would suggest that some of those representations come before this board and just talk about the work leading up to those conclusions and maybe gain a broader understanding of where they feel that these positions are needed. So
Are you talking about law enforcement or CMH?
both together.
Well, I mean, law enforcement was here.
It's a
to talk
collaborative
about
effort.
it.
Well, they don't feel that they got that the point was taken. So perhaps some further. And I can bridge that if you need me to.
I've been contacted by CMH. The sheriff and I are wanting to sit down and meet with the individual that reached out to us. We have not yet had the opportunity to do that. Heard my opinion previously. It's clearly stated in the law. It's clearly stated in an agreement, and we've had previous agreements with the courts, the prosecutor, and the jail with CMH indicating exactly what that diversion looks like and efforts look like. There's no reason we can't go back to that. So they can say what they like to say, and they will plead the Medicaid rule. They'll say we can't do it with Medicaid dollars. We can't do it because of the statutes. Whatever that looks like, we know that they can. What that looks like, I don't know yet. But we will be continuing the conversation with Mr. Martinez and his staff and the sheriff and his staff specific to jail diversion and services within the jail. So Commissioner Walter, I do now recall we did ask the sheriff for 5 years of data showing the overtime and vacancies within the jail specifically.
Yeah, so we could see the bigger picture and, how much we're paying out and some of those other things.
We also have vacancies in the probation department.
Yes, I believe they do.
At the 86th District Court or at the circuit?
District Court. It's parole at Circuit Court.
We also discussed at the last meeting, again, it was all discussion because it was a study session, but about getting a legal opinion on that situation with CMH. Do we need to make a motion to that effect, or does the council know that we need to seek that?
So,
don't we already have one?
I don't know. There were so many lawyers involved in the recreation of this document. I don't know where else to turn. Cole Stoker was involved with that discussion on the periphery, but the Kirby Albright and his crew was the actual drafter of that document that ultimately was agreed to by all 6 counties. So we can go back with Cole Stoker, and they've provided previous opinions on the relationship we have with CMH specifically to what our contribution was and how that could actually change, or could it change, and what would happen if we left Northern Lakes CMH altogether. So yes, I can work with Matt to get that, but I'll just leave that at that, I guess. That there's what the law says you can do, and there's things that you are able to do. And what we agreed to within that agreement was something that may be a little differently than what CMH agrees to conceptually, but at least it's in writing.
So to your point, Commissioner Morris, about us not understanding them, I think there was consensus at the study session that we need those services, the diversion in those services in the jail. It seemed like there was a lot of support for that. Mm-hmm. It was just like, who is going to pay for that? Are we going to hire new people to implement those services that we are expecting CMH to be providing already through the money that we put into CMH? That's where the disconnect is. It wasn't that they needed to come and maybe tell their story in a different way. I feel like we all were on the same page that those were necessary. It was just in terms of, I don't want to pay twice for something that should already be there. I think that's where the sticking point was.
Right. Well, I think that part of our growing pains involve like breaking down the silos where you do this, you do this, you do this, and then there's no communication. I think, to make this effective for everybody, we have to be collaborative, and that's the spirit that Northern Lakes has now that they didn't have before. So
I would agree with that sentiment, Commissioner Morris. They have totally changed the way they approach these discussions, which is helpful. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't sound like we're going to get a resolution that CMH is going to fund that position in the next month in time for us to approve a budget with or without that position.
Correct. Yes. The discharge planner, again, we talked about the number of vacancies that the jail has in their current staffing situation. It's not likely going to improve greatly over the next year. The sheriff and I have had a separate conversation about possible ways to address that, and I don't want to disclose what that is because they're still very fresh conversations, but we may have the opportunity to use some existing funding for that position, but You heard what the sheriff said. I don't want to get to a position where I have an FTE cap and I'm over it and not have a corrections officer if we need it. We already have that scenario on the law enforcement side of the house, and that is within the Detective Bureau. A couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Dean, is that right-ish?
Correct.
They had vacancies on the law enforcement side. They were asking for an additional detective, and we allowed that to happen within their cap. And they are currently above that cap because they're full staffed. That will likely change as well. So it's a legitimate concern on behalf of the sheriff. He doesn't want to have a staffing plan or a staffing model that's out of whack.
Okay.
Do you have the direction you need?
Nope. But what I will do, I'd forgotten about the request from the sheriff to bring that back. I will reach out to the sheriff and see if he can come back. What we're going to do is we're going to move forward on balancing the budget and present to you in a future meeting a balanced budget that we would recommend and stand behind. And then if we're going to have to hear from the sheriff, it sounds like, and maybe even the courts again, to have questions answered directly about those positions, or are we?
Well, will your balanced budget include or not include the 4 positions that have been requested?
I don't know how we could do that without really restructuring some of the budget administratively. I think that if you're going to fund the court position specific to the treatment court, you could use or consider opioid task force dollars. That would not be a general fund implication. Everything else.
I think we'd need a legal opinion under whether that's consistent with Exhibit E to the settlement agreement, considering that at least probably 3/4 of that position is not opioid, right? Because 6 of the participation, it's 60 are in sobriety court and 30 are in drug court, and so even if you just do it that way, it's a 2/3, 1/3, and even then, part of this position is for supervisor over probation officers who are not in the court at all. So then you've got an even smaller piece of the pie. So I don't think you can legitimately say that that is preventing overdoses in our community, that the settlement dollars are meant for.
Or maybe part of it could be.
Yep.
But maybe part of it could be.
Okay, are we ready to move on?
Certainly.
Okay. Let's move on to item 13, Commissioner and Department reports. Any staff reports, commissioner reports? Thank you, everyone, for coming to the airport earlier this week and participating in the joint session with Leelanau County Commission and the airport board. What else is going on? Commissioner Nelson?
You guys are all invited to a party, free food and drink, Friday, October 25th at St. Francis High School. It's a Glad Hander free preview night. There is no cost to attend. You can come see the school decorated for the Glad Hander private event the next night. There will be opportunities to buy keys for the treasure chest, but you're not obligated. So please come and join the party.
Patriot game that evening as well.
Also the Patriot game that evening. You can get
So
them
you're
both.
You're going to be downtown anyways. All right. Anybody else?
Our next regular scheduled meeting is November 20th?
Yep.
6? No, what?
Okay, let's go to...
After the election, I knew that wouldn't be.
Yeah, we did that for you, Bonnie.
Nothing before the 20th.
And I thank you very much, because I will probably be up all night. So.
Okay, so we're going to go to second public comment, and then we'll have notices if anybody thinks of anything. Please, if anyone would like to address the board, now is your opportunity to approach the podium. Welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon or morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dave Friedman. I'm in Garfield County, 135 Garfield Township, 1354 Hillview Drive, and I've spoken in the past. I'm speaking as the chair of the newly renamed Grand Traverse Addiction Recovery Council, formerly the Prevention Council, the Grand Traverse Prevention Council. We thank you for the approval of the resolution earlier today. Our mission is to create a community-wide culture of awareness and addiction in the prevention, treatment, and recovery of substance use disorders. Our vision is a substance use disorder-free community. And talk a little about what you were just speaking about. I'm going to just kick my notes to the side now, which I usually do anyway. You're talking about a growing community, and prevention is one of those front-end pieces of a growing community. I think they're all important. You talked about housing, you talked about mental health, talked about substance use, and domestic violence, all of which are things that are larger community issues. They become more, as people live closer, I come from a large community. I've been here about 4 years now. We thank you for the resolution because this is also Red Ribbon Week. And Red Ribbon Day will be celebrated. One of my cohorts here will speak about Red Ribbon Day as well. Red Ribbon Day started about 30 years ago when Kiki Camarena, who was a DEA agent, was killed in Mexico. So this is not a new problem. We have problems with overdose. Luckily, overdoses are down today, somewhat, maybe 5 or 10% down. But that doesn't mean they've stopped. They're just down per capita. We have a very large alcohol problem here as well. I'm also on one of the NMRE committees. Alcohol accounts for about 51% of the admissions. Just, and then we have accidents. So anyway, again, thank you. I'm sorry our other folks had to go to their offices and see people, but we've got a couple other folks to talk about what actually we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Lauren Reed. I am a resident of Grand Traverse County, and I'm here representing the coalition as well, now council. So just to give a little background information, we started back in 2015 when then prosecuting attorney and now judge Bob Cooney was seeing a lot of cases come through, and he wanted to address the substance use disorder issue in our community. So since then, we've been building. So we have over 100 members of the community involved now, and we do a lot of education and awareness for the community. We also do a lot with youth, so I'll speak a little bit to that, and then my coworker Linda will speak more to that in a minute. So we have our STAND clubs, which are students together against negative decisions. So we are in the county high schools. These are student-led groups. They identify issues that they're seeing in their school, and we do different events and activities to bring awareness to this to other students. Another big thing that we are working on as a council is bringing an opioid fatality review to our county. So this is similar to the child death review. So we're working with the Michigan Public Health Institute to bring that up here. So we'll review overdose cases, and after we've done about 3 or so, we'll see trends, and we can see what we can do to address these and do better going forward. So thank you again. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, hello again. My name is Linda Solom, and I'm with in Grand Traverse County as well. And I'm with Up North Prevention. I'm a certified prevention specialist. And Up North Prevention is an initiative of Catholic Human Services. And part of what I do, I'm also part of I'm used to the old name, Grand Traverse County Drug-Free Coalition. So I'll have to get used to this new name, which we're very happy about doing and going forward. But some of the things that I do as part of the coalition and Up North Prevention is I actually go into the schools. And I do work with the youth. And one of the things that we do are campaigns throughout the year. As Dave brought up, we have the Red Ribbon Week coming up. That's October 23rd through the 31st. Kingsley School has taken this full reign. The students are involved through the STAND group. They do announcements over the loudspeaker. They wear different colors red during the week. They do different incentives and contests during the week, and it's all focused on drug prevention. And we are going to also be in their lunchroom for a couple of the lunch hours during the week, giving out information, handouts, being accessible to the youth, letting them know we're here, what those resources are. I've done this for 3 years now. It's amazing talking to these kids, having them really ask pertinent questions and probably things that they can't just reach out and ask, but here's somebody saying, oh, here's some candy. Have you seen this brochure? Hey, have you looked at this? And then they're saying, well, I'm going to take this home to my dad. So it's actually a very awesome thing. We also set up tables at the Traverse Area District Library. And something else that we do is, we do Prime for Life courses and classes for at-risk students. And, I did want to read to you what Red Ribbon Week is. It actually serves as a catalyst to mobilize communities, to educate the youth, and encourage participation in drug prevention activities. And Prime for Life is an evidence-based program. It's designed to help participants change their drinking and drug use behaviors by examining beliefs, internal motivations, and risk perceptions. And so we are able to take that into the schools with the students, and I do that with Central High School and at West High School, and I also help teach with their program for health. And we usually do a couple classes per quarter for them on drug prevention. So this is actually just a good report, feedback to all of you, to thank you immensely for signing the proclamation so that we can continue to make that a top priority and accessible to our students, youth, and community.
Thanks, Linda. Anybody else for second public comment?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome.
First, I want to say thanks for everything you do for the people of Grand Traverse County. My name's Andy Nickerson. I'm a fourth-generation lifelong resident of Grand Traverse County and Blair Township. Recently brought to my attention about a vacancy on the Road Commission Board. I'm just here to introduce myself and take your consideration for that position coming up.
Thank you. Anyone else for second public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and go to notices. As the administrator said, our next meeting will be November 20th. Might be a special mixed in if something important comes up that is a ways off, but
Study session next week.
Oh, study section, yeah. Coming up. All right. Grand Traverse County Conservation District has their seedling sale this Saturday, the 19th. Go to naturescalling.org for more information. And got a message this morning from Traverse Connect that our Congressman Bergman will be receiving an award this afternoon at between 3:30 and 4:30 from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. This is going to be at the Grand Traverse Industries. There'll be a tour of the facility and a brief ceremony there between 3:30 and 4:30. Any other notices? Seeing none, we're going to put into recess the apportionment meeting that will be picked up at a later date, and we will adjourn our regular meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
So we do have a study session next month, right?
Yep.